Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CCS Thursday conference. I'm Redacted, and I am joined by Elsa the Queen here. How you doing?
Doing awesome, Redacted. I'm really happy to be here, and we're really sad for our companion Chains who's sick, but I'm super psyched that you were able to fill in today, and we're already into the draft here, so I'm excited to get started.
Alrighty, yeah, let's get it. We have Team Predictive Gaming Odin versus Team Death Realm, and with our three bands here, Akshan, Victor, and Diana. Bands coming in super hot.
Yeah,
Camille,
definitely.
Trundle, and Trinity on the other side. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Band's coming in extremely quickly here. It definitely seems like both teams probably did a little bit of research and recognize a lot of these champions as kind of being particular mains for some of these players. Huffzone really known for his Tryndamere play, so happy to see that one banned out. On the other side for PGO, though, choosing to go with the Jinx first pick, definitely something that's interesting. This year for PGO, we have Odd Mitch stepping into that 80 carry role, their former support. Definitely has a lot of Jinx games on his solo queue record, even though he did not play it during the lock-in tournament. So that's going to be
Mhm.
first pick for them. But Team Death Realm, they're coming out really fast after that with a super aggressive bot lane there with the Caitlyn Lux.
Yeah, absolutely. That Caitlyn Lux has been tearing up solo queue and pro play for quite a bit. So we're just definitely going to keep our eyes on that. And we know that TDR has already thrown the gauntlet down to state that, like, we want to play through our bot lane. We want to get our bot lane ahead. So we'll see how PGR is going to respond. And Corky Jarvin. So, ooh, some nice picks there. Devil Marksman.
Yeah, and right now we see PGO pretty much just getting, their pick of the litter of sort of top tier champions. I mentioned how some of these bans definitely made sense as targeted bans from Team Death Realm, but kind of the other effect of that is that PGO then is getting these straight up power picks that maybe they aren't specifically known for, but we know that these players can play these champions. Jarvan was a mainstay for Charizard. I know last season as well, and he also played it in the lock-in tournament in the jungle. And then Corky, just one of the most broken mid laners at the moment. Huge scaling power there, but we continue to fly through this draft. Sejuani being picked up for Team Death Realm, that was the only thing that their jungler Bipolar played in his 2 games in the lock-in tournament. So I'm kind of surprised to see that one go through, as opposed to something like the Diana that was banned. But as we step into this second phase of bans, we get the Thresh banned out, and we'll have to see where the rest of the focus comes from both teams.
Yeah, Sedge is a very interesting pickup because I mean she hasn't really been meta recently. Not to say that she isn't a good pick, it's just she's not one of the S tier junglers right now that everyone has priority on. And to couple that fact that now we definitely are going to look for some melee champions coming out from TDR to definitely strike that proc that E much quicker. So I'm curious as to what TDR would draft to combo or pair well with this Sedge here.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good point, Redacted. Obviously, we love seeing those melee champions to go alongside Sejuani, just to be able to proc her passive as quickly as, or proc the E as quickly as possible and get that stun. So I'm interested to see here if Team Deathrealm is going to try to save their counter pick for mid lane or top lane. Obviously, I guess it would make sense here. I feel like to pick their mid laner, just because Corki has already been selected, and it will be the Gwen coming through. Normally we would expect the Gwen to go top lane, and certainly I think it's probably still a flex technically. But notably Matt, who's the mid laner for Team Deathrealm, also the highest ranked player on the team. He did play
Mhm.
a Gwen mid game during the lock-in tournament. So honestly, I would expect this Gwen to go into the mid lane. And if PGO's done their homework, they should be expecting the same. Nemesis, the top laner for Team Deathrealm, he does not have a Gwen game, I believe, on
Mhm.
his solo queue yet this season. So not necessarily something that he's familiar with. But I do like kind of the idea of that flex potential from the Gwen coming out here, and then the Leona. I really, not necessarily the kind of peel that you would usually think going alongside a Jinx, but I do love the amount of initiation and dive that it provides against something like a Caitlyn Lux.
Absolutely. And I was gonna say, I don't think PGO is going for PO. PGO is going for all in. There, I mean, you got the Corky, you got the J4, you got the Leona, you got Volibear here. That just screams to me, Jinx, stand back, do damage and everything, but we're going in and we're gonna try and kill somebody as quickly as possible. We're gonna blow them up, and then you can clean up with your rockets there. And so let's see what TDR is gonna. Oh, wow. So I guess you were right there with that Gwen flex. If this Gangplank is not locked in and we actually get the Tom Kench. So two melee champions to definitely combo up with that Sedge, which is really good, by the way. But now I'm curious as to where these champions will go. So what do you think, Odin? Or Elsa, I'm sorry. Calling you Odin there.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, so I think that it's definitely going to be my guess is it's definitely going to be that Gwen to the mid lane, and then that Caitlyn Lux bot lane to the Tom Kench top. I know Huffzone probably feeling a little bit disappointed in that Tom Kench pick. He was calling in the trash talk earlier for a carry v carry matchup in the top lane, but. Not going to be that way this time, and honestly, he did pick the Volibear for himself.
Mhm.
Volibear, I guess again, like has some flexibility between the support and the top lane role, but definitely kind of a classic pick for Huffzone. So expecting that one to go up into the top lane for him. So definitely some flex potential coming out from both teams, but at the end of the day, when you know about what these teams like to do, not necessarily surprised to see the outcome of this draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, with this being the first game out of three, this is a best of three, everyone. So I'm very curious to see how this game will go, obviously determining the winner, and that how that will affect previous or not previous, future drafts and picks from here on forward. With I'm sorry, not TDO, TDR and PGO both being I would say about plat average, plat gold average teams. We're definitely going to see some, I would say, higher level play coming out from both these organizations. And I'm very excited to get into this game here.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're kind of thinking about the way that these team comps are going to play out throughout the game, I think the name of the game, if you're PGO, is being patient, not forcing things, not being overly aggressive, especially in the bottom lane where, this Jinx and Leona is inevitably going to be poked out early by the Caitlyn Lux. Just waiting
Absolutely.
for those Jinx and Corki to hit those item spikes. Once they do hit that kind of 3 item point, it's going to become very difficult for Team Deathrealm to be able to keep up with the composition that they've drafted.
Absolutely. And just also based off their draft. So from as I look at TDR's draft, it to me it screams we want to attack the bot lane. We want to destroy this Jinx. We want to put them behind. We want to get our Caitlyn Lux ahead as quickly as possible. I don't know too much about Gwen mid. But we know Gwen as a champion once again. As soon as she gets her Rift Maker and about probably at Nashor's Tooth, about 1 to 2 items, she becomes a menace and very difficult to handle. So we'll see how PGO responds to this.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see the way that Matt chooses to play this lane. Is going to be pretty severely outranged here by this Corki, so I'd imagine that he'll be kind of taking a back seat early on. However, as the Gwen does continue to scale, another scaling champion, I would imagine that then they'll start to rotate Matt either up into the top lane or into the bottom lane, get him into that long lane. I think hopefully you would get him matched against the Volibear if possible, just because we know Gwen brings that kind of tank shredding ability. But definitely both teams bringing a specific style and their own specific flavor to the Rift, and I'm excited to see what happens here.
Yeah, absolutely. So predictions. Who you got?
Well, I spoke to it a little bit earlier, but I think in this draft maybe got a little bit away from Team Deathrealm in terms of
Mm-hmm.
providing so many of those top tier picks over towards PGO, notably the Corki, the Jinx, and also the Jarvan as well. Jarvan we know is this super strong early game jungler that
Mm-hmm.
is able to get early ganks off and also kind of dominate the river battles early on over their scuttle crabs, which we know are super important. And in addition, Bipolar, he is the lowest ranked member of this Team Deathrealm squad. I would anticipate that Charizard's going to use that Jarvan to make his life miserable early on, and I'm going to have to go with the favorites and take Predictive Gaming Odin here in game one.
Okay, well, I like to do this thing sometimes, especially since I'm new to the CCS and I'm new to these teams as well. So I'm just gonna go the opposite, and I'm gonna go with TDR just to go against you. Create a little bit of drama here and see
Hey,
how.
I was wrong about most of my predictions for yesterday. Yesterday we had a ton of surprises in the Wednesday league, so there's there's definitely a good chance you'll be right.
All right, so yeah, I'm gonna go with TDR here. And before we cut to break, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Pro Comps for being a sponsor for the CCS. Pro Comps is the first of its kind. It's a drafting tool aimed for competitive and solo queue play. Pro Comps allows the user to live feedback and analysis on drafting, giving them recommendations on picks, notes on matchups, and analysis on the team's enemies' win conditions. These features allow the user to gain an edge on their opponent and improve their drafting skills. You can use this code CCS25 for 25% off on your first 6 months. Once again, that is CCS25 for 25% off on your first 6 months. And with that being said, we're going to cut it to break. See you soon, and don't touch that dial. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone, as we get into Game One of the CCS Thursday Conference. And take a look at our screens here. Is it looks like both teams are just going into the standard five-man setup here. Maybe we'll get some early action, maybe not. Looks like everyone just wants to play it safe. So, Elsa, what are we looking for Team PGO here?
Yeah, so early on here, I'm definitely interested in where Charizard's going to want to start in his jungle because I
Mhm.
definitely do think that he's going to have some options as far as ganking early on. Definitely down into that bot lane. Obviously, we've already talked about how Caitlyn Lux is super strong in the early game, but as soon as Leona hits level 2, you're going to have some all-in potential, and especially with a Jarvan coming in, I would actually definitely look for them to especially try to pick on the Lux. And then up here in the top
Yeah.
lane, as Nemesis taking a little bit of damage.
Yeah, taking a little bit of damage there from Huffzone and the Grain Man, but Bipolar coming to back up his top laner. Nemesis is more than likely gonna have to recall to just refill up his health, and that might put him behind in this top lane.
Yeah, and it looks like he won't actually be able to get a recall off because he needs to be here to be able to help Bipolar. Again, kind of some of the consequences of taking a jungler like Sejuani really struggles to, in terms of the early clear, being able to do it by herself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be Nemesis probably having to burn an early TP in order to reset just because he already had to use his potion. Looks like Huff Zone was able to provide the leash over there on the top side as well. So both junglers doing a mirrored start, except we do see Sejuani skipping out on the Krugs, which doesn't surprise me because of the fact that her clear is a little bit slower, but it will mean she's a little bit behind in XP early on in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sedge's clears, I would say compared to J4's, I would say it's probably just a few seconds slower. Not really known for clearing super fast, but I know she's going to want to get that level 6 as quickly as possible. But luckily for her and TDR, they both drafted two melee champions in those solo lanes, so that will definitely help out in any gank potentials that TDR tries to do in those solo lanes for the early game until Sejuani gets level 6. So maybe we'll see an early gank coming out from her now that she has the opportunity to proc that E much quicker.
Yeah, she is down here already doing the blue buff. We can see that actually it looks like Charizard did forego his own Raptor, so should pretty much be at the same pace as the Sejuani. Because of that, if not a little bit faster, like you mentioned, Redacted. And with this Caitlyn Lux already so far pushed up into the bot lane, I would heavily anticipate Charizard paying a visit down here. And if Bipolar's smart, he'll be available there for the counter gank as well. So I think that we could definitely see some action coming up here. It looks
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Charizard
As
already
Huff
moving into
Zone,
the area.
yeah, Huff Zone definitely putting the pause on the catfish there. Bear versus catfish. I feel like I'm in a river, and we're watching a grizzly bear go hunting as Nemesis is gonna have to flash out, and Huff Zone gets the first blood. But hold that thought there. It looks like we're gonna get some more action in this bot lane here. As Charizard ganks the bot laner of TDR, Ignite coming out from Bipolar, or not from Bipolar. I'm sorry, Ignite coming out from the Leona there, and she will be taken out. So, uh, actually, the PG jungler will be taken out. Correction, sorry about that, y'all. So, failed gank from the side of PG here, and that one kill going over to TDR. But it looks like the action is not done here as they're trying to get this kill onto the Jinx there, and it backfires on them. Luck's gonna have to flash out, and yeah,
Wow.
that was a
So
lot of
happened
action.
really, yeah, a lot happened really fast there. I'll let you take a breath, but so basically, honestly, exactly how I called it there into the bottom lane. We saw the aggressive gank, as now we're gonna get a fight into the mid lane, maybe, but it looks like they're not going to quite go all in, but very aggressive by Charizard. They're jumping in. I'm a little bit disappointed that he didn't anticipate the counter gank coming out from the Sejuani, just because they should have had knowledge that that Nemesis did leash over onto the top side. That's part of the reason that he didn't recall, is now Nemesis actually coming mid.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this Tom Kench is already behind a little bit, so he's gonna have to more than likely try and get as much CS as possible in his lane, but probably affect the map in other areas in order to provide some value in this early game.
Yeah, and as I think we're seeing the consequences really early of that level 1 trade that Tom Kench. Oh,
Yeah, but hold that thought there, as Gwen is immune, so no root stun coming out from the Leona there onto Matt.
Yeah, no, Gwen, fun champion to play against for sure. But yeah, Huffzone taking that early kill, being able to dive into the turret that early, definitely really huge for him in being able to control this lane. But we can see again, Matt maybe in trouble. We'll be able to just dive away.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, just playing it really safe. But, I spoke to it in the champion select. This Gwen is going to struggle in the mid lane early on because of the fact that she needs to be pushed up in order to be able to get the farm. And I just think that so far, PGO is definitely doing a nice job of camping that mid lane and making sure that Gwen does not have that early game pressure onto the Corki.
Absolutely, but Huffzone is using the ultimate there onto Nemesis. It looks like he will be able to secure that kill, he will. 2-0 for the top laner of PGO.
Yeah, and Huffzone, he likes to talk the talk, and he walks the walk so far in this one. Look at his build, the disrespect cull coming out. Not something that you normally see on a Volibear, but a Volibear that is this confident and this fed early in the game. Why not, right? Definitely going to take it. And now we're maybe going to see another gank, but surprise, he is going to miss the E there onto Leona.
Yeah, and if you take a look, you see Bipolar also down there in the river. So this gank for PGO might go bad depending on how they play their cards, or they're gonna have to burst out one of the TDR champions really quickly. As you see Corki roaming down, it looks like they're gonna sneak this Drake here as Bipolar is in this bush, and Leona was unaware, but I think this is gonna go in favor of PGO as Bipolar is now out of position. His bot laner is unable to help him out.
Oh!
And Corki landing the rockets onto the Caitlyn there. It looks like Charizard's gonna be able to get out with the E. Nope, never mind. Lux gets the root on him, uses the E as well. Jinx trying to get something back for his team, will not be able to do so. And they're gonna clean up this Leona here as well as this Jinx, or I'm sorry, this Gwen is now also secures a kill for TDR.
Let's see a Huffzone trying to make something happen, but three members, three or was it four members of his team? Yeah, four members of his team are already dead, and I gotta say, so far, I was the first to criticize Bipolar talking about his rank in the champion select, but he's played a great game, just being in the right places at the right time, and you called it absolutely right, Redacted. PGO had no idea that Sejuani was in that bush, maybe even no idea that she was even on that side of the map, and that was just easy, that just made it look easy from Team Deathrealm with Sejuani just taking the 1v1 onto Charizard. Has a level up as Sejuani. It looks like, now getting that level 6.
Yeah, absolutely. But we see, looks like PGO is not done with their offensive as they want to get this Gwen down. Gwen is no longer immune. Ignite coming out, and Corki, Whole Grain Man, will secure the kill. So PGO getting something back, and they need to, because that mistake, that collapse that they had in the bot lane earlier definitely would put them behind. So good for them. But this ultimate comes out from Bipolar. Will go wide. Nemesis flashes. Uses the Devour onto Corki there. And they will be able to secure the kill onto Whole Grain Man.
Yeah, and just, another nice gank from Bipolar. Did Smithy the ult with the miss there, but really it was just actually a really, really good sidestep by Whole Grain Man. But then ultimately he was not able to keep himself alive just because of the Tom Kench being there as well. So, I mean, honestly, right now, it seems like PGO maybe just not necessarily showing the level of respect to Team Deathrealm that they deserve as Nemesis.
It looks like we're going to get more action here as Huffzone looks like she stepped into the wrong bush there. Will ultimate out. Matt and Nemesis chasing him down, but I don't think they're going to get it. As Leona uses the slower flare there onto Mr. Potate. Flash out from the Lux, splash out from the Leona. Big rocket from Whole Grain Man. No more light spark from Lux.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good, pretty big shutdown, pretty big gold over. It does go into the hands of Charizard. When you might have wanted it to go to Whole Grand Man on the Corki, but with that being said, Charizard has fallen behind in this game. He is 2 levels down at this point, and obviously as Jarvan, really, really hoping to get to that level 6 as fast as possible, especially aiding his ability to gank this squishy bot lane that Team Deathrealm is fielding in this particular matchup. So again, like when we saw Huffzone there in the top lane, he was able to escape, but he elected into that fight in the Tri-Brush there, trying to chase Nemesis and just being a little bit greedy with it. So as PGO goes over to approach the Rift Herald now, looks like this is good timing as Bipolar is going back, so they'll probably be able to pick that one up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, while we have a bit of breathing space, I think from both teams, they didn't really do good jungle tracking. Sorry about that tongue twister there. As I thought I would have seen, especially given it's a Sedge and a J4, you definitely want to keep your eye on what camps these champions have taken. But it looks like both teams haven't really tracked the other jungle as well as they could have, leading to some of these players that have came out. So hopefully we'll see a bit more awareness, situational awareness from both sides here. Or, we can keep the fiesta going. As it looks like we will. As Bipolar flashes in, we got the ace in the hole coming out from the Caitlyn there, but will not be able to kill it as Surprise blocks that surprise for his bot laner.
Yeah, they don't get the kill, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because they are going to pick up this first turret gold, as we do see this fight into the top lane.
Yeah, Tom Kench getting a little handsy there with the bear there. Catfish, once again, Catfish does not beat Bear, especially now that Bear has 2 kills. So
Yeah,
let's
dude,
watch
it just
yourself
makes
there.
when you keep saying that, it makes me think of like those photos of like a bear on a waterfall
Catching the
like,
salmon.
salmon out of the water, and that's what I keep
Absolutely.
thinking of. That's basically what's happening in the 1v1 at least so far this game. But so basically the risk when you pick something like Caitlyn Lux is that these champions will be very far pushed up in the early game. They're pretty vulnerable, not the most mobile champions. But at this point, they have one lane. They took that first turret down at about 10.5 minutes into the game. So they pretty much accomplished what they've wanted to, and it should smooth out the power spikes for Caitlyn, which can sometimes be pretty awkward. At least into the deep into the mid game, we can see that on your screen that Caitlyn has already completed that Gale Force, so she does have that one good to go. And we'll have to see now that they were able to take that turret if we see any lane assignment, any changes in the lane assignments here for Team Deathrealm. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of bail Gwen out of this lane. We can see that she's sitting over 30 CS down to the Corki. I'd like to see them move her into the bottom lane and then put Lux and Caitlyn into the mid, but
yeah, as Mr. Potato uses the final spark there to just burst out Charizard, and it looks like they're going to have to back off as this dragon is going to be more than likely going over to TDR here.
Yeah, an awesome job by TDR. It looks like maybe a fight, but they were able to force Charizard out.
Yeah, hold that thought there as Matt is trying to keep the PGO squad away from them. It looks like Bipolar is going to go in onto the Odin there. Will it be able to secure that kill onto the Jinx? Keep your eyes on TDR as Vladimir ultimates in and gets most of the members of TDR low and is just able to clean them up and destroy the TDR backline there, or frontline, I'm sorry, as Charizard uses the Cataclysm there to go ahead and finish off the Caitlyn. And a fight that was going in favor of TDR has definitely swung into the favor of Odin here, and it looks like they'll be more than likely use this Rift here to try and accelerate this Corki and get him some more gold.
Team Deathrealm, they got the dragon, but they lose absolutely everything else. And remember the name, Huff Zone, you won't forget it. Coming in with an awesome Volibear ultimate onto 3 members, just disrupting that backline and doing so much AoE damage. We can see that he's gone for a really aggressive build with this Trinity Force, just so he does have, it's going to be surprising for the enemy team how much this Volibear is able to offer, but that's what happens when you get 2 solo kills early in the game. And it's nice to see Huffzone being able to carry this team. When we saw him in the lock-in tournament with losing, he was put on tank duty. He was put on that Tom Kench. Seeing him on his Volibear here, and he's looking just as good as he ever was.
Yeah, Volibear, he said, I'm going Volley Carry. Pun intended. That was a bad one. But surprised they're using the ultimate there to just dissuade Mr. Potato from harassing them any further. And it looks like Team Deathrealm wants to try and get some chip damage onto this tower, but I think they're being a bit overzealous here, as luckily the stun there from Lux does land, but they know Bipolar is here. He's Flash coming out from Nemesis here onto Odd Midge. He's going to have to use the Chompers to try and give himself some space. Zap to slow him down. Abyssal Voyage, though, unfortunately allows him to reposition. Uses the Lick of Tongue on Odd Midge. I think this Jinx is going to die. She's running for her life here. Corki, Whole Grain Man is coming to assist. Uses the Cleanse Out. And yeah, Jinx knows it's over. Whole Grain Man, are you next on the menu? We will see. Nope. Oh wait, hold on. I forgot. Tom Kench has the Abyssal Voyage there, as he uses the Valkyrie there to try and get him some space between himself and Nemesis. And I think that will be all. So 1-0 in favor of TDR.
Yeah, and
And
not only was Mr. Potato in the top lane able to land an awesome double light binding there in order to stop Surprise and Charizard from getting into that top lane, but they were also able to punish the fact that the Jinx was alone on that bot side. So awesome map awareness there from Nemesis to know that he can definitely take that 1v1 matchup. Doesn't really matter if you're behind as a Tom Kench when you're going against a Jinx that hasn't even reached one item yet.
yeah,
And even though Surprise has definitely been able to create a lot of pressure around the map with this heavily, this roam heavy style that he's been playing, but it's been heavily at the expense of Odd Mitch playing this Jinx, which is normally something that we think of as having to be babysat early in the game because of how vulnerable she is, sitting about 30 CS behind the Caitlyn, turret already dead, and not even at for her first item yet. And we reference how it's all about scaling for this Predictive Gaming Odin squad, and the scaling pretty delayed at this point, at least when it comes to the Jinx.
absolutely. And if we take a look at the gold, Jinx is about 1,200 gold behind this Caitlyn now. And as a Jinx, being behind your rival ADC is one of the worst feelings in game because you just feel useless. The other ADC is doing so much more damage than you. Yeah, you have your Chompers and your Rocket, which you can probably, snipe out a low champion given the chance if it appears so. But right now, with not even your Mythic online, it just doesn't feel the greatest at all. And it looks like, what happened with the Rift Herald
The Rift
there?
Herald got stolen.
Okay, oh, sorry. We'll continue that for a second here as PGO just annihilates Russia there. Looks like Nemesis is trying to kill Hearthstone here, and they will be able to do so. Jinx uses the rocket there to just create some damage, but it's not doing anything right now. As I said, she's just so far behind. She's basically a pea shooter.
Yeah, and again, just kind of some questionable macro play from Predictive Gaming Odin. They go for this Rift Herald, even though their mid lane turret is just being, not taken down without contestation, just with the Caitlyn with so much damage early on the turret. I don't understand why they'd be going for the Rift Herald in the first place, and then just adding insult to injury, the Rift Herald was stolen by, I would assume it was the ult from Mr. Potato on the Lux, being able to take that one away. Now, it doesn't look like Team Deathrealm was actually able to pick up that Rift Herald, but just being able to deny it from PGO when they were the ones who spent all that time trying to take it down is huge. But now the dragon's up and teleport's coming in from Hudson.
Yep. Looks like we're gonna have ourselves another conflict here as Nemesis teleports in, and it looks like this Ocean Drake yet to be claimed by either side as both sides are posturing. Potato using the light binding there and the slow to create a zone for TDR. But Jinx using these rockets to put some damage down onto the Drake there. Light binding coming out from the Lux once again. And it looks like TDR is gonna get the Ocean Drake here. Charizard flashing out, but unfortunately will not be able to get anything. It's Odimich there laying this damage down onto the TDR squad here. This Jinx, if she gets any resets here, I definitely see the game turning in favor of PGO once again. It looks like Whole Grain Man's looking for some stragglers. We'll be able to clean up Matt here and probably Bipolar. But unfortunately, Rubber has definitely gotten rid of the Jinx. Bipolar flashing out. Unfortunately, it's kind of useless as he didn't get any space between himself and the Corki. And it looks like Whole Grain Man is Whole Grain dead.
Yeah, and kind of, I actually thought that he had the potential to win that against the Caitlyn, but kind of running into the minions, just taking a lot of damage from them. I mean, it looked like he was trying to just clear them out before he thought he would inevitably die, but I would actually like to see Whole Grain Man maybe, try to fight that. He did have his flash up to maybe try to dodge out on like the Q from Caitlyn or something like that, but does end up going down. So, another fight that is surprisingly even. In terms of like what I expected coming into this game, but I guess I should expect it at this point because it just seems like this is a really even matchup. Gold only 200 ahead for Team Deathrealm, but crucially 3 dragons with an Ocean Soul upcoming going to be on the table in just 3.5 minutes here. So that's going to be a win condition that's super important for Team Deathrealm. And now if you're Predictive Gaming Odin, your hands are really tied because you have to contest for this next dragon. Otherwise the scaling gets a little bit wonkier.
Absolutely. And oh my god, that is one reason why I also started playing Corki mid lane. Just look at that splash damage coming
Speaking
out.
of scaling, yeah, I mean, we see that,
Jesus.
the Corki, he's at, 2.5 items now, has been able to upgrade to the Muramana.
Oh, light
Both
binding onto Charizard and just out of position. The disrespect.
Yeah, the disrespect, and I also want to give, full props to Mr. Potate playing this Lux in this game. He's definitely been on fire. I already called out his light bindings earlier on, stealing the Rift Herald, just having a huge game as Huffzone going on to Nemesis here. It's a true 1v1.
Yeah. 1v1 that Catfish does not win, as we have seen time and time again. Maybe one day, but right now it looks like the food chain will not be broken.
Yeah, not quite yet. The Catfish have not risen up, and I don't think that I think that I don't know if there's a point where Nemesis starts to win this 1v1, but there's certainly a point at which he's able to pick up enough tank stats that he should be able to shrug off a lot of the damage of the Volibear. Now, we do see Huffzone building towards this matchup pretty heavily, has picked up the Black Cleaver as his second item. So, again, continuing to be really aggressive. And I'll just go back for one more second to Mr. Potate on this Lux. This is the only pick he has played so far in CCS, including the 2 games in the lock-in tournament. So something that I was surprised to see not banned out or taken away. So we talked about, this is the first game of a 3-game series. So it'll be interesting to see how PGO decides to react to that in later drafts as they do clear out some of the major vision that has been put down here in the top lane river by Team Death Realm.
Yeah, and as we have some more breathing room to talk, I just want to ask you here, Elsa. So, Gold is actually and shockingly only about a 1K deficit on the side of. I mean, it feels like one team is, sometimes you can say one team has more momentum or flow and that they're winning per se, but right now it doesn't necessarily feel like that. So, in terms of PGO or Team Odin here, what would you say they need to do to potentially get themselves a bit more momentum into this game going forward?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think first of all, they need to contest this next dragon. I think it's totally fine if Charizard just needs to try to get into the pit for a suicide mission to be able to get the smite down, but they need to be able to secure this in order to deny the soul. Outside of that, though, I'd really like to see Predictive Gaming Odin just try to control these waves in a way that allows them to sit back a little bit closer to their turrets. There's another light binding.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
This time the damage does go on to Surprise, though, instead of Charizard. So Charizard is still at full HP, definitely will be here, ready to contest this dragon when it comes up in 20 seconds. But Jinx finally finishing 1 item, but, far, far away from kind of that, 2, but really 3 item mark where you would like her to be. So, wanting
Absolutely.
to see them scale there.
As bipolar, or not bipolar, Huffzone thought he had the look on the TDR there, but will not be able to do so as Nemesis and the rest of Matt are just gunning down this Leona. Devourer coming in onto the Jinx there, will most likely die, and Whole Grain Man is the last man standing, flashes out, and it's just gonna have to run away, but Ace in the hole secures the kill onto the Corki there as TDR now have full control over this game.
It's a 5-for-1. It's the Ocean Soul going over to Team Death Realm, and they're running possibly over to the Baron Pit. I think that would be the best decision because it's still, only 4 or 5 seconds left on Huffzone and Charizard, as well as Surprise, but it looks like they are going to try to get this one. They do have this Caitlyn, which is pretty fed, and I believe Gwen's pretty good at taking Baron as well, so we'll see how fast they're able to take it down. It looks like Charizard, though, he's just running towards the bot lane.
Keep your eyes on this Jinx, though. She does have ultimate, and it has been launched. The rocket is coming. Is it gonna get it? Will it secure it? It does! PGO, get the Baron! What happened to Smite? Smite was up! Bipolar, what you doing?
Can someone say called it? Can someone say called it?
I thought they nerfed that. Hold up, I thought they nerfed that.
Oddmitch with just a massive play there, right? Still the Ocean Soul does belong to Team Death Realm, so that is extremely significant. But if Team Death Realm was able to get that Baron, I would have become really, really worried about PGO's, kind of ability to defend against the siege in that situation, especially against this Caitlyn Lux. We've talked about it all game. Bringing that range as well as that siege potential just gets really, really difficult to deal with. So that was honestly critical to keep PGO in this game. So Odd Mitch, even though he was left alone early to fend for himself, definitely has had some deaths, making up for it there.
Yes, Bipolar uses the glacial, the ultimate there to secure Huff Zone and stun him down for a bit. They get his health to about halfway. As Nemesis flashes onto Odd Mitch here, they really want to take out this Jinx. As she is starting to become a threat, and this the catfish may have lost against the bear, but he's not losing against the other team members of PGO here.
No, not at all. And it looks like they are going to just be able to siege down Nemesis.
Abysmal Voyage with the dash from the Sejuani there, and even though PGO have the Baron, it's not really helping them out as much as it should.
Yeah, it's not, and I think that the reason why largely is because they tried to use the Baron really aggressively there, just running right down mid to try to siege that. That doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's a blessing to have stolen this Baron, and you use it as a way to stall the game out, get a few more items, as Charizard looking forward a little bit dangerously. But I really would not have. I'm confused as to why they thought that they could afford to be that aggressive, especially with the little amount of vision that they have. And it just looks like right now, yeah, they have these really high damage carries, but they're just really not able to crack through this front line of the Sejuani, as well as the Tahm Kench. We can see both of these champions building heavily towards armor. So I would definitely like to see some armor penetration coming out from the carries of PGO.
And absolutely, and I just want to point out that Odd Mitch, thank God, has built a completed Mortal Reminder there. It's going to have to cleanse out, though, from the final spark. As Nemesis Abyssal Voyage is in, looks like they want to get that slow, and they will... Oh, okay, yep, they secure the kill into Jinx as Charizard uses Cataclysm onto the Caitlyn there. Caitlyn flashes out. Looks like TDR will be able to clean up PGO here. And ladies and gentlemen, this might be game if PGO wipes here. Whole Grand Man getting the last stand for his team will be taken out, and I think this is game here. Or at least an inhibitor.
I agree. I mean, it's at least going to be close, right? We got the shortest death timer we have left is 20 seconds on Charizard. They do have some minions here, and smartly they're going to tank up the turret with the Tahm Kench in order to keep the minions alive as long as possible. They should be able to keep them alive the whole time, and I think this is going to be Team Death Realm just handily taking game one.
It looks like they're going for it. Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like, hey, my prediction won out in the end, actually. It turns out, going the opposite direction got me some goodwill. Looks like TDR would take game one.
Yeah, you were absolutely right, 100%. I'll admit it, and I just really think that in that game, as we kind of go into some of these post-game stats, I'm disappointed in some of the macro play that we saw coming out there from Predictive Gaming. Odin, definitely a team that we think of as pretty coordinated, playing pretty well as a squad. They have been together for quite a long time outside of their support and surprise. So just, looking at these damage charts, though, Whole Grain Man having just kind of a field day on Corki, dealing 31k damage. The closest other member is actually Mr. Potate, dealing the most damage to champions on his team on this Lux. So Whole Grain Man doing a lot, but it just ultimately doesn't end up being enough.
Yeah, and it's quite unfortunate, especially given the fact that Huff Zone was ahead, and it just, TDR, they knew exactly what they did, exactly what I kind of said in draft. They drafted the Kate Lux first, and that immediately told me that, all right, we want our bot lane to be strong, and we're going to play through our bot lane, which they did. They put the Jinx down multiple times. They put the Leona down multiple times. Every time, well, not every time, but it felt like every time that the Jarvan was trying to gank the TDR bot laners, Bipolar was there to stop him. So TDR definitely playing to their strengths very well. And even though their top lane was behind, it didn't really affect them too much because, once again, they just were able to play and synergize with their strengths.
Yeah, and I think in addition to synergizing with your strengths, understanding your weaknesses is a critical element of being a good League of Legends 5-person squad. And that sometimes means picking something like Tahm Kench for the top lane that, yeah, isn't going to win. I mean, it's not going to win lane. He was being dove, but ultimately it didn't matter at all, as Nemesis ended up being super impactful, not only in terms of getting on the Jinx early and often, but also just kind of tanking up the amount of damage that he was able to that he was able to. So impressive with that. And before we jump into a break, before we go into the second game here, talking a little bit about what I'd like to see in the draft, there's some specific picks that I think PGO needs to ban out. That is, they should have known that coming into this game. Specifically, the Sejuani as well as the Lux. These are the only champions that we've seen Bipolar and Mr. Potate play so far in this league. Now, obviously, they can play other champions, but clearly this is a huge part of the game plan from TDR. So PGO next game going onto the red side, I'd like to see them take advantage of that a little bit more.
Alrighty, well, we heard it here first from Elsa, y'all. So we're just gonna cut to a quick break and get into game 2 shortly after. Welcome back, everyone, for Game 2 of the CCS Thursday Conference with PGO versus TDR. And we're right into draft with Camille and Trundle coming out from the TDR side and Lux and Sedge from the PGO side. So it looks like somebody has learned their lesson, Elsa. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, listening to the stream as they are in need of my coaching, of course. So I like to see those bans coming out, not adjusting the bans from TDR. And honestly, I criticized their bans a little bit for being maybe too targeted last time, but hey, it worked out for them, right? And I don't feel like, certainly I felt that the Corky was a really strong pick.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Corky in particular, I really didn't see anything from Odd Mitch's Jinx or Charizard's Jarvan definitely that made it seem like it was ban worthy, honestly. So just continuing to be able to target out Huff Zone. Obviously, Huff Zone was able to hard win lane, so they couldn't prevent him from doing that, but it did prevent him from having an impact on the map later. And with TDR first picking this Victor, I just want to talk a little bit about how much I love this pick right now. Victor, just incredible wave clear, super high damage mid laner to a point that I think is absolutely busted because he has the speed up from his Q, the shield from his Q, the protection that the gravity well is able to provide him off of the W. Just a broken champion. I couldn't talk about it enough, and I did anticipate that this would come out from Matt. It's one of his most played solo queue champions. Was not played in the lock-in, but of course Victor was disabled at that point due to some bugs. Now he's enabled again. But PGO responding with the Corky, that was the one part of their team comp that
What is
seemed
this, the
very.
LCK?
Yeah, no, yeah, we're definitely getting more back to some stock standard kind of things here. But again, I love TDR just coming out strong with that Victor. They probably know when they take the Victor that the Corky is going to go into it. But that's just that matchup's just kind of a wash. And it looks like Charizard, he's going to take a second try at this Jarvan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you said it pretty well, Elsa, that I honestly don't know what else I could say is besides I'm gonna see what they pick next here as but no, really, Corky, Jarvan, Victor so far, those are all pretty standard and not surprising. Was a little bit I was hoping TDR picked up the Jarvan just because I know it would combo well with the Victor ultimate there, but looks like PGO snatched it up first, so which is also smart, like don't give your opponent something that will synergize well with what they already have. But picking up the Rakan here that's a great support pick. Rakan's been kind of like I want to call him like in the shadows. One of those supports that like you pick more so when you're looking for engage, but he's not necessarily one of the top or hot support picks right now. But he's definitely still a great option. And with the Zinzhao there, I definitely see a lot of aggression coming out from the side of Team Death Realm.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Xin Zhao coming out next, that's just kind of, we talked about is this LCK? We're definitely kind of just going down that tier list here. The Diana already banned out by PGO, another really good jungler, then obviously the Sejuani as well. So Xin Zhao's kind of the next one on the list before PGO gets a chance to ban more away. But I do
Wow.
like the move here from PGO, taking away the Caitlyn. It was definitely something that Team Death Realm was able to execute well in the first game, so denying it away here.
Yeah, granted, Caitlyn is a strong pick, but if you ban the Lux, why would you still pick the Caitlyn? In my opinion, I mean, as a champion alone, yes, she's still strong, but you already took away one of the champions that pairs really well with her. So I'm curious to see what they will synergize well with this Caitlyn because Aphelios is still there, and Jinx has been banned. Zeri's disabled, so I'm trying to think of the other like high tier picks right now is an AD carry, but it's just slipping my mind.
I not a big thing, but I'm pretty sure actually
Oh,
Zeri might be
there's Jin.
enabled. But it looks like instead they are. I think Zeri is enabled. I'm not 100% on that. Flay is probably talking about it in the Twitch chat
I'm
though.
sure production will get back to us.
Just definitely banning out, the Jinx and the Jin just to be able to limit those bot lane options that can compete well with Caitlyn. Morgana being taken away, as well as the Gwen. I would hear for PGO, I wouldn't be surprised to see them come out with something like perhaps a Zillion would be kind of a spicy one to go along with the Caitlyn just to provide some of that additional poke, or something like the Senna, which is something that's not a surprise special, but it's a special from PGO in general. But instead, the Galio, this is one of the top played picks for surprise on the support role, so he is going to be able to pick up that Galio. So not I mean, not providing, like you said, redacted. It's not going to have that lane pressure that something like a Lux or Morgana that was banned out would be able to provide. But definitely some good lockdown, all in potential. Being able to layer, maybe that Galio taunt alongside the Caitlyn trap. And Ezreal's almost 100% going to be the pick here from Rusher. He did favor this in multiple games in the lock-in tournament, so I was a little surprised to not see it be banned away. But maybe they're trying to force him onto it here. And now it looks like just a blind pick top laner here from TDR. I wonder if they just go Kench again.
Yeah, we'll see as Ezreal is locked in, Galio for the other side. Zeri is enabled, by the way. Thank you, production. But it looks like they will not pick that champion up. So that's very shocking to me because Zeri's pretty good right now. And the nerfs haven't came in yet. So very curious as to why the TDR did not pick up that champion. Granted, her weaknesses are hard CC, which PGO has quite a bit, with the Caitlyn, Galio, Jarvan. So you do want to be a bit mindful of how you draft her. So I could see the reason why not. But on the side of TDR with the Ezreal Ornn being picked up last year, to me, this just screams Ezreal, you're going to be on an island. The Jin Zhao is going to be top in mid as much as possible. I mean, of course, he'll still gank his bot lane, but Ezreal, I see this Rakan roaming. I see the roaming support coming through very, very often here on the side of Team Death Row.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it pains me a little bit looking at the end of this champion select with the Ornn picked up from Team Death Realm, allowing Nemesis to kind of just play that exact same role that he was able to play last time. This time it's the Ornn. Last time it was the Tahm Kench. Just both of these champions have that engage potential, that ability to really make life a living hell for champions like Caitlyn and Corki. And certainly Mordekaiser is going to be hard to deal with in lane by Nemesis, but we already saw, how could it get worse from last game, right? Redacted, where Tahm Kench was getting dove under his turret, after the first wave is crashing. So if you're Predictive Gaming Odin here, I'm just not really sure what's going through your heads, because this strategy of trying to pick a winning top lane matchup and snowball the game off of that just was not successful. And I really don't know if it will be successful again. We'll have to see if they just play it out a little bit differently. But Huffzone, certainly loves these kind of carry champions, but he's also known for things like the Shen as well, something that he's really, really strong on. I believe that was even banned away by at least one of the teams last game. Would have liked to maybe see something like a Shen, just to be able to provide a little bit more peel, because later in the game, these Corki and Caitlyn, they might just be left out to dry.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll definitely have to keep our eyes on the top lane, as they always say win lane, win game. But right now for Huffzone, that is not proving to be the case. But we're gonna go to a quick break here as we prepare ourselves for game 2. Welcome back, everyone, as we get into Game 2 of Team Death Row versus Predictive Gaming Odin. And as we get into the rift here, it looks like PGO looks like they're going for the little 5-man comp. Okay. Think we're gonna get anything spicy going on here, Elsa? What you
All
think?
right, they are going to hide out in this bush. I mean, we did see some overextension in Game 1 from Team Death Realm at that level 1. Obviously, we saw the Tom Kench get punished, which ultimately resulted in his death. But this time, it looks like they're going to play it a little bit safer. So, it doesn't look like there is much vision. Although, actually, I'll take that back because it looks like Bipolar was, or maybe it wasn't Bipolar because he's actually got the sweeper. One of the members, maybe it was Rusher from Team Death Realm, was able to get a nice little ward there over onto the red side jungle of PGO. Now, it's not all the way over on the buff, so I don't think they can be totally sure whether they're starting on that side or not, but nice to be able to get that vision down, and then the consequence for PGO trying to go for that invade is they don't get any vision to match.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, as you were saying, Elsa, you know, just looks like I'm sorry, TDR here. Looks like they're sitting. The bot lane of TDR is sitting in this bush. They haven't done anything yet. Looks like they will be trying to. Yep, looks like they're gonna get the engage onto Adamich here, and Mr. Potate's just gonna walk out. But I don't know if that trade was necessarily in their favor.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty close. Both supports just taking a good amount of damage. That last Q, though, hitting from Rusher does mean that they slightly win. But not, nothing, no summoner spells burned or anything like that going on early on. And notably this time, junglers starting on opposite sides of the map, with Charizard going towards the top side, and then Bipolar coming down over here onto that bot side. And it absolutely makes sense to me that they would want Bipolar coming down here. We talked about it last game. Caitlyn inevitably is going to be pushed up. So trying to maybe be able to take advantage of that, although Oddmitch is taking a lot of poke from the Rusher, hitting his Qs really well, and that top lane already a lot of scrapping going on, just like last game early on.
Yeah, and Hubstone putting the pause onto Nemesis here, or should I say the halberd there this time, let me use accurate, correct terms, is Nemesis just gets the knockout onto Hubstone. A little bit of skirmishing between these top laners here. It's like a wet noodle fight so far. Granted, their health is decreasing, so...
Yeah. For a while. For some time, it's a wet noodle fight.
Exactly, but hold that thought. There's Charizard is top lane. Looks like he might try to get the gank onto Nemesis there, but Nemesis is playing a bit carefully. As I think he susses something out, as he's just keeping his distance in the lane so far.
Yeah.
And as we look up that river there, we see Bipolar there looking to make a play potentially onto the Whole Grain Man, but Whole Grain Man's gonna suss it out, ping out the jungler there, and Charizard gets the knock, a flash out from Orin there, and the TDR top laner will live to fight another.
Nemesis just, he did suss out that gank really, really well, as you pointed out, but just lacking a little bit of patience, just needed to wait Charizard out a little bit longer. He is able to survive, but without flash, as
Rusher gets the first blood there onto the Caitlyn. Wow, I thought it was just going to be a light skirmishing, but unfortunately the burst was more than we both of us expected.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think Oddmitch expected it either, right? I mean, he still has his flash as well as his heal available, and Mr. Patate, who had an absolutely fantastic game one, getting forced onto this Rakan after his Lux was banned out, and just barely nailing Oddmitch with the very outer edge of that grand entrance there. So huge for this team to be able to get that first kill onto the Caitlyn, because Caitlyn really needs to win lane pretty hard and consistently be pushed up in order to hit her item spikes at the points that she wants to, and this is just going to slow her down. And certainly when you pick Ezreal into Caitlyn, you're not picking it as a counter pick, you're picking it as something that can stay safe in lane. So performing well above expectations once again is this bot lane from Team Death Realm.
Absolutely, and the Caitlyn was about 10 CS behind earlier, probably about 4 or 5 CS behind now, so she is picking a little bit up, as she's going to recall here, most likely to buy some more items, gets the Noon Quiver there. So with that being said, the bot lane right now, the gold difference is about 500, so this Ezreal's comfortably ahead, and unfortunately, if Odd Mitch is unable to play this lane a bit safer, and this Ezreal, gets a bit more gold, it's going to be a problem for the Caitlyn, because it's one thing to have an Ezreal ahead. It's another thing to have him ahead early game into a Caitlyn, which she should be winning that matchup. But we're going to have ourselves in a skirmish here as Charizard is out of position. We'll flash out. A surprise flashes in, gets the taunt onto Bipolar there, and they will be able to secure the kill onto the TDR jungler. As Mr. Predictive flashes out, and looks like he will be able to live another day. Nope, surprise says I want it, and he will get it.
Yeah, and that time Charizard caught out once again. I thought that it was almost looked like I was seeing a replay of what happened last game with the dragon control that Team Deathrealm was able to achieve, but instead it's the perfect bait. He still has his flash up, able to get himself away, and then Odd Mitch with an awesome E to be able to get that additional damage on his auto attack with Caitlyn. And now we are seeing the pings coming down into the dragon. Surprise is going to start it, but we'll see if teams if this is going to be contested. Surprise taking a lot of damage though.
Yeah, that Hex Drake does not hit lightly as Bipolar flashes in for the kill into Surprise. His life will be claimed in return as Charizard gets that one, but Charizard's life will be taken in revenge for Rusher here. So, game score 3-3, kills for TDR 2-1.
Yeah, so kills going on to both sides, but Rusher again just comes out as kind of the biggest beneficiary of this. He's 3-0 on the Ezreal. He was able to pick up that tier extremely early alongside the Sheen, which is kind of like the god tier first back from Ezreal, right? Those are just core items early on. So being able to have that to keep himself healthy and then just continuing to build on that with more kills. So I'm excited to see what Rusher will be able to do later in this game on the Ezreal pick that, as I've talked about, he favors very heavily. He likes this pick and he knows how to play it well.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but my question for you, Elsa, is let's say you're Charizard on Predictive Gaming Odin here. Do you continue to help a losing lane, or where would you go next? Like, what is your next move here as the PGO jungler?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you do want to sometimes be able to support your lanes that are winning. Speaking of that, as Huffstone goes.
Oh, that thought there. Yeah, Nemesis gets the flash kill onto Orange, so.
But that's exactly the thing, right? Like, he doesn't need help from Charizard to be able to dominate that lane, even though the Caitlyn and the Galio have fallen behind here. Charizard's still staying on the bot side, not only to be able to kind of babysit this lane to make sure that Bipolar can't come down here and make their, and set up some sort of dive, but also trying to counter the dragon control that was a huge part of the game plan in Game 1 for Team Deathrealm.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, Charizard doesn't have the Cataclysm yet, but it looks like he is posturing for this Drake here. It is warded from the side of TDR, so they will know that he wants to start this Drake. As it looks like we get the Horn, just probably to clear out the wave up top. And it looks like Huffstone is just going to back off. And Whole Grain Man coming to assist his jungler. Oh, all of PGO coming to assist their junglers to get this Hex Drake, and it will be claimed for the side of PGO. And hopefully we see Charizard get his level 6 there pretty soon, most likely after these wolves here, because he is currently behind the TDR jungler.
Yeah, but he was able to secure that dragon. You were right that there was definitely a ward. I'm not sure when the pink ward was put down by PGO to deny the vision, but there was a ward in the pit from Team Deathrealm, but the problem was that with bot and top lane both so pushed in, they were not able to contest, and so first dragon, it will go over to PGO. Definitely became super important in that last game when the early soul was able to be picked up from Team Deathrealm. So just trying to kind of deny some of that stacking and maybe try to get it for themselves as well. But a nice job of just kind of recognizing what the other team's game plan was in Game 1 and trying to react to that.
Yeah, and we have Infernal Drake next here, so that means neither Hex Drake nor the Infernal Drake or Infernal Soul will be available for these teams. So we're looking at either Mountain, Cloud, or an Ocean. Hopefully we get an Ocean Soul, or I would say a Cloud Soul. I like to go fast. A lot of people diss the Cloud Soul. I don't mind it though, but I'm willing to take the L on that.
I mean, I'm actually a pretty big fan of the Cloud Soul. I think actually it would be particularly good if for Team Death Realm to be able to get it, just because they do have a lot of champions that are pretty centered around their ultimates in Rakan, as well as the Ornn, notably as kind of
And the movement speed of Rakan, Ezreal, Xin
Yep.
Victor.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, to the Ornn too, but like those 4 champions with a Cloud Soul, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I think either one would be beneficial to either of these teams. You know, the Ocean Soul very powerful as well, as we saw in that last game. But, you know, checking in a little bit on this mid lane, which we haven't really talked about very much yet, just kind of what we expected in terms of the lane being a wash. Both Victor as well as Corki definitely playing for scaling, but Mr. Potato.
Yeah, it looks like Whole Grain Man uses the package there to get the damage onto Matt. Matt using the Chaos Storm, trying to get something back for himself, but Charizard with the Cataclysm ensures that his death will be sealed.
Yeah, and now Bipolar, though, being reactive to this, he does have the Rift Herald available and is going to drop it down into this bottom lane. I don't think that PGO is going to be able to contest. We do see Charizard wrapping around, but this turret's already going to be dead.
Absolutely. And it looks like Charizard's still looking for a play here, as he will use the flag stash to get himself into position, but it looks like he's gonna be taken out as the Ignite and the Xin take care of the PGO jungler. As Whole Grain Man flashes in, uses the package, we'll be able to get the double kill, we'll be able to get the triple no, as Xin was able to clean him up. And this Xin able to turn it his self and his team around, and it looks like a play that was doomed from the start.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the play was absolutely doomed from the start. You know, Charizard, he just used his ultimate into the mid lane, didn't have it available again. When you pair, the reason that Jarvan and Galio is a good pairing is because, you know, when you're able to get that Jarvan ultimate down, the Cataclysm, you know, it facilitates knocking up more members by the grand entrance with the Galio. So, you know, when you're not able to line that up, even the Flag and Drag missing, it just means that there's so little CC, and yeah, just kind of a poor moment to fight there. Certainly, they would have been able to defend the second tier turret once they got Whole Grain Man in the area. But
and that was the term I was trying to remember. I think I called it a flag and grab. Hubzone using the Death Realm here onto Nemesis as he flashes, trying to have the tower help him do the work to take out this Mordekaiser here, but unfortunately, it's not enough. And I just think that was a blown flash there. I don't think he should have done this. He probably knew he was dead. He should have just held onto the flash. And now that's a summoner that's going to be down for about another 5 minutes here. And Drake is up in the next 50 seconds.
Yeah, Dragon coming up again soon. As it looks like PGO might be trying to set up something around the mid lane here. But Mr. Potato is able to use the grand entrance to get himself to safety. But meanwhile, Bipolar in the top lane, you know, he does get the flash off of Huff Zone. Still 30 seconds on the Dragon spawn, so he might be able to get back down here. But if PGO plays their cards right, they should be setting up around it. Right now, they do have some wards in the area already and have been able to clear out some vision. But here comes Bipolar into the mid lane, and we will have a fight over this Dragon.
Absolutely, as the TDR champions are encroaching on the Drake space, and it looks like PGO right now are just giving them every inch of this. I don't think they're going to contest it, as PGO is out of position. You know, the Galio is not with the rest of his team. Granted, he doesn't need to be, as his ultimate is not up. So it looks like PGO is just going to give this Drake over, and we are going to have ourselves Ocean Soul number 2.
Yep.
So get ready to see some heel cut as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Ocean Soul going to be the soul this game. So also the Ocean Rift as well. As we do see TDR quickly moving over onto this top side of the map, possibly aware of where Hupzone is and maybe trying to punish, as he does not have flash. He is going to try to recall, but definitely going to get interrupted.
Yeah, and it looks like this is just going to be given over. Hupzone, unfortunately, you just overstayed your welcome, and they will claim that kill, and Bipolar is on a roll. 4-2-2 for the TDR jungler, 400 gold bounty. You know, Xin is definitely the early game champion that he needs to be right now, as Matt uses the Chaos Storm onto Charizard there, and Galio just using the heroic entrance to protect and give his jungler there some magic resistance shielding.
Yeah, and Charizard again just being a little bit like, well, not a little bit, quite overzealous there. Definitely does not have enough tank stats at this time to be able to compete with Matt. And right now, a little bit similar to what we saw with Oddmitch playing the Jinx last game and falling behind. This Caitlyn does finally have the Gale Force completed, but just really not able to have any pressure in this game. Caitlyn, we know, especially when she's behind, but just in general, not necessarily the strongest team fighting sort of champion. So it's going to be a while here with Oddmitch just at level 9 until he's able to get into the game and be competitive. So interested to see, if PGO tries to play this out slowly as the Death Realm has been dropped.
Yeah, absolutely. Death Realm been dropped, and it looks like Huffzone will just be able to secure that kill into Nemesis there. So far, honestly, Elsa, this is looking like a repeat of game one. Huffzone is dominating in the top lane, but as we saw in game one, winning lane did not translate to winning game. So we need to see. I think we need to start seeing Huffzone affecting the rest of the map in a more impactful manner. Otherwise, right now, I still see this going in favor of TDR. Your Xin Zhao's really strong, Ezreal's really strong as well, and you still have your Victor who's gonna scale. So we need to see some. And Nemesis is just gonna be that meat shield like he was in the game one. So
Yep.
what do you think PGO need to do here to ensure themselves a winning chance?
Well, first they got to defend their mid turret, which it looks like they will be able to do as Whole Grain Man looking for a fight.
Yeah, as Whole Grain Man now, okay, gets the kill onto Matt there, because I was about to say, I think he's now the one that's out of position, as Bipolar Blue is flash trying to get the Wind Becomes Lightning slow onto Whole Grain Man, but not be able to do so. And yeah, it looks like PGO are definitely taking the initiative here, using the Rift Herald onto the mid lane turret. I think they will be able to get the second hit, possibly the turret on this second charge here, as Mr. Pate uses the ultimate there and just gives his life away, unfortunately. And yeah, that goes in favor of PGO, now taking about 400 gold lead in favor of their squad.
Yeah, and that's just finally kind of a great understanding of the macro that's going on in this game from PGO. They know that multiple members were pulled down to answer Whole Grain Man into the bottom lane, which allows them to, freeze them up to drop that Rift Herald, picking up the mid lane turret and another charge. And that's just really crucial for PGO to be able to control the vision in the enemy jungle when you take down that mid lane turret. And that was something that really inhibited them in the last game, was just kind of a lack of vision control overall. So I like them focusing on getting that mid lane turret, just kind of grouping up and taking advantage of the strength that their team comp does have in terms of sieging.
Yeah, as Whole Grain Man uses the package there just to clear out the minions. As Mr. Pate walks onto the trap, Ignite will burn him down as Mr. Pate, as Whole Grain Man secures the kill as Huffzone and surprise coming for a big surprise onto Bipolar there as he uses the Death Realm to try and clear out the jungler of TDR as they both take each other out. So that would be a 3-for-1 trade in favor of PGO.
Yeah, a 3-for-1 trade, but I mean, sorry, go ahead, Redacted.
Oh no, I was gonna say I didn't even see when Matt died.
Yeah, there was kind of a separate fight over onto the side, and I believe that Oddmitch was able to finish that one off with the ace in the hole. So definitely a big play, as it looks like Rusher, they are going to give up the dragon, but nice to be able to get that mid lane turret as sort of a consolation prize.
And it looks like we have more action here as Charizard uses the Cataclysm to secure the kill onto Rusher there, ensuring he has no escape. And Whole Grain Man getting the kill onto Nemesis there as PGO was looking like, a snowball in favor of the TDR squad has now firmly landed in the grasp of the PGO squad here. And now they have themselves another Drake as they are 2 Drakes away from Soul.
Yeah, PGO just really turning it around in this last, kind of just 2.5 or 3 minute sort of stretch here, playing the map in the way that we would expect them to do. And, right there, I just got to point out something small with Surprise using his taunt over the wall on the Galio to be able to prevent Bipolar.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Just a really nice, it's all about the little things, especially when you're playing support that sometimes go unappreciated. But, other than that, I mean, got to point out Matt playing this Victor. I was super hyped on this pick and talked about how overpowered it was coming in, but he really hasn't shown us much of anything. So, gotta shout out Whole Grain Man for really nullifying him in the lane phase. And then, in general, PGO as a team just playing well around this Victor, not allowing him to kind of just be that menace with the huge amount of AoE damage that he offers with the ultimate, as well as that laser, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like, I'm sorry, I was about to call PGO, looking at the Twitch name of HuffZone there. But it looks like PGO definitely is listening to our cast here, as the Mordekaiser has definitely helped out his team a lot more and has been a lot more impactful across the map compared to game one. So I like that this Mordekaiser and the rest of PGO are definitely moving a bit more in harmony, a bit more in sync here as they claim these objectives and fights across the map.
Yeah, and certainly HuffZone has been a huge part of their ability to do this. One of the huge strengths of bringing Mordekaiser with the Realm of Death as his ultimate, and also kind of the namesake of Team Death Realm,
Yeah.
but is being able to fight, give your team the advantage of literally removing one of the enemy members out of the fight. Notably taking out the Ezreal as well as the Xin Zhao is going to make a huge difference, especially as these team fights start to go later and later, and those champions are so impactful. So glad to see that they're grouping up a little bit more, and it obviously seems to be working for them. But now we do see both teams kind of hovering around this Baron, sort of fighting for a little bit of vision control, and interested to see if a fight breaks out as Matt starts to get poked.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like they really want to claim PGO, that is. It looks like they were trying to claim that top lane tower there, but right now with Matt being there, his wave clear is still very strong. He may be an 0-3 victor, but he still has excellent wave clear. And it looks like they will not be able to get that, as Odin using the ace and hold there just to harass TDR just real quick. Oh, but hold that though, as Matt uses the Valkyrie and it just blows up. Whole Grain Man blows up Matt, but Bipolar will not be deterred as he sees an opportunity for his team to get something in return, and they will take out Surprise. As Whole Grain Man now looks to be out of position, but he will just walk towards this tower. But we have pings coming out from TDR. It looks like they want to make Whole Grain Man into a whole dead man, as they will get the ultimate from the Ornn there and the knockup, and he's still alive, will be claimed. Flash coming out from both junglers here. Wind becomes lightning onto Charizard as he's trying to walk away. Gets the knockup from Zinza out there. Cataclysm to keep him locked in as he tries to claim something for himself. Flag gets dragged to get out. And so far, Charizard plays it back and gets a double kill. Will there be a triple? No, not for him, but for the Mordekaiser here. As it looks like PGO, the pendulum was not swinging in their favor, but they somehow put their weight into it and got it back.
Yeah, and Charizard absolutely showing us why it is worthwhile to prioritize this Jarvan pick for him, doing an excellent job trapping the enemy under the turret, and honestly, Team Death Realm really doing their best PGO from game one impression there, just with kind of a huge overstep, trying to get onto
Well, hold that thought there, Elsa. I might have to cut you off as Matt uses the Chaos Storm to try and, just get these PGO members a bit squishy as he flashes in, trying to secure the kill into Odin there. Will not be able to do so as Corki uses the package, and he will blow up Matt. And it looks like PGO is going to claim this Baron as TDR is trying to do something, but they got here a bit too late. Nemesis has to flash out, ace in the hole in the ignite onto Nemesis, but it's just an Ornn. He's still pretty tanky. It's not going to take him out. And right now, PGO, are you going to be able to leave with your prize intact? So far, everyone has the Baron, but it looks like TDR will not be deterred. They want to punish this play, but it looks like they're going to be punished instead. TDR, I think you may have bitten off more than you can chew. Please watch yourselves and watch your back, as this Corki, he has plenty of rockets to burn, and he's not afraid to use them.
Yeah, and these objectives just coming up rapid fire one after another with just 10 seconds remaining until this Ocean Drake does spawn. This would be pretty big for PGO to be able to pick up, put themselves on that soul point, which again, forces the hand of the enemy team to contest all the drakes that are going to come afterwards. So they'd really like to be able to pick this one up. They are here on time. Charizard's going to be here as well, and this one just should go to PGO.
Absolutely, as Ezreal using the ultimate there to just try and scout it out, maybe see if he could pick it off, but will not be able to do so. True Shot Barrage, that's the name of that. And yeah, it looks like, once again, PGO have every time TDR makes a move and it looks like it's swinging in their favor, PGO respond back in force. And this Mordekaiser pick, honestly, we might see it bad next game, or we need to start seeing some QSSs on the side of TDR here because it's getting a bit out of hand.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and Huffzone just kind of a masterclass in how to play this pick as he is diving Nemesis again.
Yeah.
That's it. He just got it.
Yep.
He can even tank the turret up. Yeah, and so this Mordekaiser is just so incredibly strong at this point, and Mr. Pate?
Oh, it's Adamich uses the Gale Force there to try and burst out Rusher, but will not be able to do so as Rusher flashes out. And yeah, so who's going to step up to this Mordekaiser? Who on test?
I mean, that's kind of the question, right? Because especially with the Baron, you know, Victor would normally be the person that you kind of send just because of his wave clear options.
As Hope that thought there, surprised uses the taunt there as Bipolar uses the Grand Crescent just to try and get himself some space, but you know, PGO are just so far ahead that this Galio is not even afraid of using this out. Like, what is going on? This game is getting completely out of hand here on this for the side of TDR, and PGO are just flexing on them.
PGO playing that a little bit sloppy at the end, going a little deep. Whole Grain Man being forced to use his stopwatch in order to drop the turret aggro, but you know, it's all worth it at the end of the day because they are able to pick up the turret. But you know, you brought up a great point, Redacted, in terms of who will be able to answer this Mordekaiser in the side lane, and especially when the Baron buff is active, you know, giving that additional magic resist to the minions. Victor's wave clear is severely inhibited, and we've already seen, you know, that Nemesis is basically a minion to Huffzone at this point, even when he has a turret. So you know, Huffzone, he was doing a little bit of split push in the bottom lane earlier as Bipolar is trying to look.
Yeah, absolutely. As Surprise and Charizard going here onto the TDR. Like, they just blow up both of them, and TDR at this point, I don't know if you're trying to just make the game end quicker or you're actually playing in a productive manner here, but you guys are just not making the wise decisions.
Yeah, no, certainly not. I mean, you know, what are they fighting over is my question if you're Team Death Realm in that situation, other than just kind of trying to fish for kills in a game where, you know, you're down turrets, you don't have the same amount of vision that the enemy does, and it's just never going to, you're never going to have a good time in that situation. But now, Surprise trying to camp out.
Oh, did they suss that out? They should have known that, right? Like, or maybe not, because actually with Galleon being in the bush, I don't think you see the taunt, if I recall correctly.
You should have been able to see it. Just smart pathing by Matt there, but now the inhibitor's under fire.
Matt, calling him Matt. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see how much more math can do, as, you know, right now, being 0-5, let's see who can get onto the board here. I don't know if he'll be able to do so, as Nemesis, Mordekaiser is just 1v5ing the entire TDR squad. Granted, he is taken out, but he's wasted so much time for his team that PGO is just able to clean up the rest, as Whole Grain Man is giving them a special delivery and is just taking out the rest of the TDR with the splash damage there.
Yeah, so
but the fight was messy.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
No, you're good. No, absolutely. I mean, it was a really messy fight, and you know, Huffzone definitely 1v5ing for kind of a ridiculous amount of time. Part of it was in the Death Realm, but still absolutely ridiculous. But at the end of the day, if you're Team Death Realm, you know, at this point, about, you know, almost 7k down in this game, going 2 for 2, really not that bad. You know, they did lose they didn't lose anything in mid lane. They didn't lose the bot lane turret either. So in that situation where you do see the, like, all 5 members of Team Death Realm rotating to answer, I believe it was Charizard and Huffzone, I would have liked to see the Caitlyn, you know, and Corki just stay in that mid lane and trade the inhibitor. But they end up fighting it instead and don't end up getting any objectives off it. So Dragon coming soon.
Yeah, Dragon definitely here soon, as TDR is looking to gain advantage into the pit here and just gain a tactical advantage over the zoning of this Drake, as Huffzone ultimates Matt here, and it looks like he will be able to clean that up, as Charizard and the rest of the team are just going forward onto the TDR members here. This orange is going to be taken out by Whole Grain Matt more than likely. One more auto? No, it looks like he's going to be able to escape. Lucky him. But this Drake more than likely... Okay, he's still chasing him. Yeah, I mean,
right? You don't need to go back for the Drake. Your team's got it. As Soul has been claimed by PGO here, and it looks like they're gonna claim this inhibitor. Do they grief for the end?
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna push up the minion wave at least 6 seconds on Mr. Potate, and we only have melee champions left, so they might be going for it.
Yeah, as you see Hogre and Matt, they're onto the other tower there as TDR looks like they're going to make their last stand, but they're just getting shellacked as the PGO squad is just removing them from the game and leaving them unable to fight back at all as PGO is going to take game 2, leaving us 1-1 in the series.
Yeah, and it didn't look pretty there at the beginning for PGO. There was definitely some moments that they wish that they could take back, but overall, definitely the macro play cleaned up in that game for Predictive Gaming. Odin, Odd Mitch, I called him out a little bit for struggling, on both the Jinx and the Caitlyn early on. By the end of the game, he was on a rampage, 4-2-11 on this Caitlyn, so he was able to keep himself relevant. Got to give it to him, but then, pulling up the damage charts again, like the damage coming out of Whole Grain Man on this Corki was absolutely ridiculous, blowing everyone else out of the water yet again. And on the other side, Matt just really not looking very good on this Victor.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's twice now that PGO have gotten the Corki. So my question is, do we take the Corki out or do we trade it for something else? I don't think necessarily the Corki is the only problem. Once again, Huff Zone is a problem. He's showing that he can be that carry top laner, and this time he proved us wrong by winning lane to win the game, making us eat our words. So I just, from TDR, I think they, once the game got away from them, they kind of panicked and were like, all right, we need to try and do something to get back into the game. But I don't think looking for consistent team fights was the right move. I think they should have kept looking for picks like they were doing with that Xin Zhao and probably either the Victor or Xin Zhao Rakan combo. But I granted, it is hard, but I just don't think it was the right move to keep diving into a Jarvan Corki with the splash damage Galio,
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely agree. I felt like Team Deathrealm was playing as if they were as far ahead as they were in the first game. So, we'll jump into the third game 3 in a little bit here, but we're talking about the draft, as you mentioned, the possibility of taking away this Corki. We are going to see Predictive Gaming Odin back onto the blue side. I think that necessitates the Corki ban from Team Deathrealm, because even if you're willing to play it yourself, you're probably not going to get your hands on it if you let it go through the draft. So definitely would like to see them drop one of those bans from the first 2 games in order to make sure that that Corki doesn't go into Whole Grain Man's hands again. But we'll have to see what they decide to do. Probably coaches talking them up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm very excited because, we're going to game 3, Silver Scrapes. Yeah, it's not game 5, but it's still Silver Scrapes because whoever takes this win in this last game here takes the series, and you start off your season 1-0, against the other team. So that just puts you ahead in the standings, and it gives you a great, just a feel good moment. Like, hey, we started off our season with a win. But we will find out who wins game 3 versus these 2 teams here just shortly. And we'll just take a quick break and we'll be back.
Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. And we are in draft for game 3, the final game tonight of Predictive Gaming Odin versus Team Death Realm. And we're right into draft. And yep, as we said, Corky is gone. He's out of here. No, Camille's out of here as well. Lux and the Sejuani band. That's interesting, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, I think that that's just one of, that's the champion Bipolar's had the most success on. Bipolar
Mhm.
on the Jinzhou, he had some good early game pathing, and I felt like he was still effective, but didn't seem to kind of have the level of mastery in terms of the team fight phase of the game that he was able to display on that Sejuani pick. So I like banning those two out again. Kind of interesting to see the Lulu also being a band away from Mr. Potate. Kind of shows that they, obviously didn't mind him being on the Rakan, and it seemed clear to me, what not only looking at Mr. Potate's kind of solo queue record, but also the way
Mhm.
that he's played in these games seems a lot more comfortable on some of those range supports. So just taking another one of those away. But now with Diana actually being banned by TDR here, both teams just paying a lot of respect to that pick. Definitely has a lot of flex potential between the jungle as well as the mid lane for both teams, but PGO for sure. So we'll have to see what PGO values here. They could try to take, their pick of the litter for the jungle here. And with Trundle picked up for PGO, definitely could go into the jungle, super strong, fast clear, good 1v1 for
Wow.
Charizard, but also definitely a flex into the top lane potentially for Huffzone as well.
That is amazing because with two bands on the support lane and all these AD carries open, granted, TDR picking up the Jinx here. I'm just shocked that they picked the Trundle first. So this must be a very high value pick that PGO definitely want to prioritize. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where it will go. Naturally by default, Trundle more than likely may go in the jungle, but we have seen him top lane. We have seen him support. Probably more than likely not, but who knows? But the Jinx and J4 coming out for TDR again. So, or not again, but coming out for TDR. So far it looks like, I would say the standard picks for TDR. But right now, let's see what PGO is going to pick next. And Thresh, wow. So that could be coupled with Aphelios next. Caitlyn, I believe, is still open. Zeri is still open. Jin is also open. So those are like really high tier picks right now, I would say, in terms of bot lane here. Or they could potentially pick a mid laner here. But I would really hope that PGO decided to pick up their bot lane to pair up with this Thresh here.
Yeah, and it
So,
is, I definitely expected PGO to take an 80 carry here before more bans were able to come through. So the Ezreal is kind of an interesting one.
yeah.
Not something that we've seen Oddmitch have a lot of experience on in terms of his solo queue record, but it's Ezreal,
Mhm.
right? I mean, if you've played the game for a long time, you probably have some experience playing the champion. And it's something that I
Not
do
me.
really like. It's something I like seeing, fair enough,
I
seeing
hate that
alongside
champ.
the Jarvan, or actually, sorry, seeing against the Jarvan, who obviously just wants to, jump onto your 80 with that Cataclysm every single time. So, Ezreal a good counter to that. I think that's, the other reason that Jarvan was selected by TDR is picking it alongside the Jinx, not because they necessarily mesh well together, but more so trying to deny it away from
Also, we have a
PGO.
Vex and a Kali band, so this is leading me to think that mid lane has been. I mean, as of right now, I'm sorry, but Nemesis top lane is not necessarily the priority. Mid lane has been like the core focus of this game. We've seen both teams win through their mid lane slash bot lane. So I'm very curious as to see what the mid lane picks are going to be here. As Akali, Victor looks to be banned, Silas, Vex banned. So in terms of high tier mid laner picks, what do we have left? There's still Syndra, I believe. Ari just recently got a buff, and Ari does damage now. Like, Oriana picked for TDR here, so I'm curious
Yeah.
as to what PGO will round that out with.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting. I would have liked to actually see them save that kind of for a last pick counter pick, but instead they're going to do it for top, which just shows respect to this Trundle flex, which is, Trundle, I wanted to say specifically performs well against the kind of tank champions we've seen Nemesis pull out so far in this series. So I think that's
Mhm.
intentional for sure. And now with the Vigar hover is going to end up being locked in,
Respect.
most likely Most likely, the Vigar, obviously, we assume it's going to go into the mid lane, but there's some bizarre universe in which this is a Vigar bot lane because this is something that PGO really, really likes to play. Now, that would put Ezreal mid, which is kind of
Really?
bizarre. Not something that we see very often, but Vigar is definitely, that's kind of the PGO special, having Vigar in that quote unquote AD role. And now this next pick is going to show us where the jungle and the top laner are going, and it's going to
That's
be
a
Warwick.
Warwick. Wait, so Trundle's going top,
So and this actually confirms to me for sure that Trundle's going top. Warwick
or
top,
is it
also
Warwick going
something that's
top?
relevant. I mean, actually, it's still Warwick top, definitely something that's relevant. I know, especially the flash barrier Warwick, super strong in certain matchups. But with that being said, Warwick is actually by far Charizard's most preferred champion in solo queue. So I do think that Warwick probably going into the jungle, and now Malphite being picked up. It just so I understand what TDR are doing here, right? Like they're setting up like the ultimate wombo combo, the classic combination, Orianna Shockwave plus the Malphite ultimate. But on the other hand, picking Malphite into a hard counter matchup that is the Trundle, I mean, that's a
Into
pretty
Huff
risky
Zone as
move to
well.
Nemesis. Yeah.
Yeah, into Huff Zone as well, who's been clearly, the better of the two top laners. We can say that Huff Zone has clearly been the better of the two top laners tonight, regardless of whether they lost game one and obviously they won game two. So it's clearly a favorable matchup for Huff Zone here, and that just also screams to me that Nemesis, you're probably going to be on an island once again, but your team just needs you more so to not feed Huff Zone as and granted, when I say feed in terms of these games, that's not going 0-6. That's just even going 0-2. Because we've seen what he has done with those few kills to accelerate his lead into that lane. So it's definitely screaming to me that they want Nemesis to play the weak side and just be a bit safe in that lane, and then eventually be that meat shield once again that the Malphite can be, and the ball delivery system through the Orianna Jinx Braum combo there.
Yeah, and so, as we kind of, on our side, we're looking here at the client draft and trying to get some finalized results as to where these champions are going. We're pretty sure we know, but it will be interesting to see. And, just to piggyback off what you said, Redacted, those combos are going to be so absolutely critical for Team Deathrealm in this particular game. Definitely look for them to try to get those level sixes as quick as possible onto the Jarvan, onto the Orianna, as well as the Malphite, and then try to group up early to take some of these team fights. So, excited to see if they can pull those off. With that being said, if you're Team Deathrealm and you have this kind of wombo combination, if you blow your ultimates early and don't end up netting any kills off of it,
Oh boy.
you're in a bad spot then, right? So they have really
Yeah.
strong R buttons for TDR, but if they don't press them at exactly the right moment, the team fight's going to be pretty much over.
Yeah, like what's a Malphite without his R?
A rock.
I mean, J4 still has something with the flag and drag, Braum still has some peel and whatnot. Even Orianna, but like, yeah. So I'm very wary of the TDR uh, combo here, but hopefully they are able to prove us wrong and show us how things are done. As in the client draft, we have Trundle in the top lane, Warwick in the jungle, and Vigar will not be flexed into the AD carry position and is going into the mid lane. So Thresh Ezreal will be our bot laners. And honestly, I want to see Surprise do exactly what his name says. I want him to roam around the entire map and start surprising the rest of these TDR members. I mean, granted, he doesn't necessarily need to help Huff Zone, but if you draft an Ezreal to me, we see it. It's so common nowadays. You just leave the champion on an island and you see your support everywhere else on the map but that. So I would like to see Surprise out there with Charizard, getting stuff done, knocking some skulls in, and securing kills for their team.
Yeah, and I love that you point that out because in game one, when we saw Surprise on the Leona, another heavy kind of roam
Hard
heavy as well
CC
as
champ.
hard
Yeah.
CC heavy champion, he did a really nice job of moving around the map. But Odd Mitch in that game being on the Jinx wasn't in a situation where he could be safely left alone. We saw him abused, particularly by the Tom Kench, as a result of those roams by surprise. However, in this game, with the Ezreal, first of all, bringing that safety, and then against the Jinx Braum, which doesn't necessarily bring, a huge amount of threat in lane. Certainly, obviously, once you get those concussive blows stacking up, there is the threat of the stun, but Braum not really having that ability to hard engage. So I like that call out, and I definitely agree. I would like to see Surprise roaming around early and often, especially paired with something like a Warwick. We know Charizard on this Warwick. Warwick's a champion that's known for wreaking absolute havoc on the jungle as well as the rest of the map early on. So I'd like to see him get aggressive on this, kind of off meta pick going against the Jarvan from Bipolar.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we cut into our break here, Elsa, let's get into our last prediction of the night here. Who are you predicting to take this series?
All right. Well, I know I was wrong on my first prediction, but I'm just going to stick to my guns. And I'm going to say, I picked PGO to be the winner of this series at the beginning of the week. I'm going to pick it again. I felt like they played as the more, organized and more coordinated team in game 2. And I'd like to see them translated into game 3.
Alrighty. And, I'm going to stick with TDR, even though I'm not going to lie, personally, I like PGO's draft better. But I'm going to stick with the boys that I picked with first, because if they get their entire combo off, it's lights up for the side of Predictive Gaming Odin. But yeah, so that's my pick there. And with that being said, everyone, we're going to go into a short break as we prepare ourselves for the Spectators Delay and Competitive Integrity for Game 3. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere.
Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to the CCS Thursday Conference as we are here for Game 3 of Predictive Gaming Odin versus Team Death Realm. Everything's on the line. Bragging rights, trash talk rights, and that illustrious scoreline of 1-0. It doesn't matter what game score says, it just matters what the series number says.
Yeah, I mean, technically it does matter for the tiebreaker, but no, I
Yeah,
totally
okay.
agree with you.
Let me Elsa.
Game score does count, just so that the teams in the CCS know. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, like taking home a win during the first week is obviously a huge big deal. And honestly, it's kind of more of a big deal in a 2-1 because it's hard fought, and this has been a hard fought and close series. And we can kind of see that illustrated in the way that these teams are playing the level 1. They're playing extremely safe, not wanting to throw the game right away, as can happen with some haphazard 1v1s. But Redacted was actually the one who pointed it out as we were loading in here. But we haven't touched very much on the runes throughout this series. But looking at Whole Grain Man here on the Vygar, picking up the Predator, just not something that we see very often. I'm interested to see how he does want to utilize this one. I guess maybe chasing people down with the cage.
Absolutely, and you know what? I would like to see. This is me personally. Since he's a Predator Vygar, I want to see him and Surprise doing drive-bys on people. I want to see some drive-bys.
Yeah.
Thresh kill into the cage, into whatever else.
Warwick
I want to
running
see some.
in there.
I want to see some straight up violence from these people, especially with these runes that the Vygar has, and with the roaming Thresh that we should see coming out, given that Ezreal has been picked for the bot lane matchup. But hold that thought. There's Hub Zone flashes, gets the chomp onto Nemesis there, but he will be able to survive with, I don't know how much health, but like a quarter of his health bar there, or an eighth, not even that, a quarter.
Oh,
As Surprise gets the hook onto Rubber there, or Rusher there, not Rubber, I'm sorry. Mr. Potato using the shield to just try and mitigate some of the damage, and it looks like the Jinx will be able to walk away safely using the pot there, and Odd Mitch definitely showing us how Ezreal likes to lay down the damage.
yeah, really well played there in that trade by Oddmitch. And, going back to that top side, I'm 90% sure that Huffzone actually auto-attacked a minion there when he flashed forward into the wave. Had he not done that, as this hook does land, but had he not auto-attacked the minion, that would have been first blood. So, pretty critical mechanical error coming out in a series where we've seen Huffzone be, quite immaculate, actually, in terms of his mechanics. So, rare mistake. We'll have to see if
let's be careful on the praise there. He's been all over. He's been in game and in the stream tonight. So Hubstone's probably listening to that right now. And he's just feeling himself. He's like, all right, I gotta show these guys even more of what I can do. But hold that thought though, as Surprise lands the hook onto Rusher there, and it looks like they're just gonna harass this Ezreal. Unfortunately, not able to secure any procs, but Whole Grain Man gets the cage onto Matt, and who will have to flash out as he's running away from the Orianna. Charizard looks like he really wants this, even though Bipolar is right here in his face, but Warwick doesn't care because, he flashes out. Actually, I guess he does care a little bit because, as I was saying, Warwick, as his health gets lower, he is able to lifesteal and attack more faster, but I guess he's just not that champion just yet. Granted, he only has no items, if you want to count his jungle item as an item, but so he's not the scary Warwick that we all love on our team, but hate when he's against us.
Yeah, and it's just Charizard, a little bit of an over chase there. I would have liked to see him just back off after blowing the flash from the Orianna right away, just making it a 1-for-1 summoner spell trade, but instead does end up expending his own flash once Bipolar was able to get into the fight. But now with this Orianna with flash down, did choose to take teleport, so no other defensive summoner spells available, and I would definitely anticipate that Charizard will be back into this lane as Surprise does go wide on the hook there.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm just gonna keep harping on this once again. And I really want to see Surprise leave his lane. I'm curious as to when do you think that would be an appropriate time, Elsa?
Yeah, I think that they're I mean, we do see the tier start from Odd Mitch, but I think that you probably want to get one recall off if you are this bot lane from Predictive Gaming Odin before you have the Thresh start to roam around the map. Not only just so that, that Sheen can be picked up, but
Mhm.
also so that Surprise can reset and then just kind of, surprise the members of Team Death Realm on any part of the map because they won't necessarily know where he's going to go after that. So I think that the roaming Thresh is still going to be on the table, but we might just have to be a little patient as Charizard does look to be clearing out some vision here around the bot side, but doesn't look like a gank is possible at this moment.
No, not at this moment here, but Hubzone is definitely putting the pressure onto Nemesis once again, 3 for 3 in terms of
Here
who
comes
is the
Bipolar
better
though.
top laner. Bipolar is roaming up. Thank you for pointing that out. Hubzone might have overstayed his welcome as Bipolar is here looking to get the flagging drag off to Hubzone. Will miss the knockup there, but Nemesis keeping his distance, and first blood will go over to TDR, given to the J4. You know, yeah, I guess it's fine. I guess it really doesn't matter who that kills goes to because they're both at the end of the day they will just be frontline champs that soak up damage for their team. And if Nemesis tried to take that, he probably would have died. So it's fine.
Yeah, I'm a little bit honestly, I'm a little bit confused by the way that PGO chose to play this out because, at the moment that we see Bipolar running up into that top lane, we also see Charizard going straight for the dragon. Now, we obviously know that, Warwick is really strong at taking these early dragons, but it indicated to me that Charizard probably knew that Bipolar was headed towards that side of the map, but,
Mhm.
not that wasn't reflected in the communication, but
Yeah,
there's a bot lane
absolutely.
gank.
But surprise, using the flash flay onto Mr. Potate there, ignite as well, but they will not be able to lock him down nor secure that kill. But they do get a summoner out, so two sums for one sum.
Yeah,
And it
and
looks like I'm sorry, and Mr. Potate doesn't have a real or not a real flash, has doesn't have the hex flash, so that summoner will be down for 5 minutes there as whole grain man flashes out from Nemesis. He would have lived.
yeah, bummer to have to use your flash as the Vigar, obviously, but just a really nice heads up flash by Whole Grain Man. I can't help but think that he's probably dead if he doesn't flash out there. Now, Orianna was pretty low
Absolutely.
on mana, but probably just best to play it safe, given that he might not have been sure where Bipolar was either. And checking in a little bit on some of these farm numbers, we are seeing the lead that we anticipated from the Trundle in the top lane, about
Oh
21
my
CS
god.
up. And actually more than that, as this is
But
going to
you
clash
should
into the
take a look
turret.
at the gold. Actually, the gold is only Nemesis is only 300 gold behind. So that kill or the assist for Nemesis, but that kill into Huff Zone really helped him out big time in terms of gold. Otherwise, this matchup would be a lot worse than what it appears to be.
No, and that's a great point. Toggling over to the gold for sure. Not a huge lead for Huff Zone. Not what you would expect based on the CS numbers, definitely at all. So that's what you want to do. If you're Nemesis in this lane, you're never going to be winning, hard winning it. Your job is basically, you already said it, Redacted, just to not die 1v1. And so far, he's been able to achieve that.
Absolutely. Doing a really great job. Surprise lands the hook onto Mr. Potate there as they were trying to clear out that control ward. But, honestly, I would say that's really a bot lane sin they just did there. You really want to try and push the wave all the way into your tower first before you try and clear out any vision. But I'm going to have to hold that thought there as Whole Grain Man secures the kill onto Bipolar, but it looks like Matt wants to get something back. Will not be able to do so as Charizard flashes out and then continues, but starts to do the blue buff. But Nemesis is here to back up, not back up, but trying to back up his mid laner, Matt. Will flash over the walls. Whole Grain Man does not have his flash and will not be able to escape. But I think that
Oh,
this fight is now going to be in the favor of Predictive Gaming Odin because once again, a Warwick, when his health gets low, that lifesteal and attack speed definitely accelerate, and they will be able to turn that around. So TDR, you wasted too much time. They needed to make a quick decision on who they wanted to attack, and they should have went together onto that champion.
yeah, and Charizard just showing that just showing the amount of experience that he does have playing this Warwick pick in the way that he used his Q there. Orianna flashing away. We know that the Warwick Q it does follow any kind of dashes and flashes, so that flash just totally useless from Matt.
Let's hold that thought there again as Surprise lands the hook onto Mr. Protect with the Ignite, and they will be able to secure that kill onto the TDR support here. And it looks like Rusher is going to be next play. Oh, Flash. It's going for it. Lands the hook onto Surprise, but will cleanse it, and looks like Rusher will be able to live another day. It gets the rocket onto on Mitch, and he will be able to turn that into a 1-for-1.
Yeah,
In favor of both teams, or not in favor because it's even.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, yeah, 1-for-1. I mean, but you know, I would argue that was absolutely huge for Rusher to be able to pick up a kill on the back end of it. Not only because Jinx, you know, needs to be able to get these items, but Hearthstone's going to try to all in.
Oh yeah, Nemesis is dead.
Here comes Bipolar.
Oh, no, he's not. Okay, Bipolar's here to back him up. Are they? I was about to say, do not greed for that. Come on,
like he's learned his lesson.
Yo, thank God, please. Yeah, and it looks like TDR is just going to pick up this Rift Hero here. We're no contest from the PGO squad. But I think now that they have been alerted to that, it looks like PGO are posturing for this Drake. And what is the first Drake? If I have my timers up. Ocean, okay. That's Flash Play from Surprise there onto Matt. And it looks like the Orianna will not be able to escape as she will be killed. But looks like Charizard is here to go ahead and claim something back for his team as Mr. Potato flashes out, and Odin Mitch will get that kill. And yeah, it looks like, you know, 2-0 in favor of PGO.
Yeah, just a very nice fight. I really like the confidence that Surprise had there to just flash over the wall right away onto Matt. They know because Matt had used his flash just in that earlier skirmish that happened in the blue side jungle that he didn't have that one available, and just really capitalizing on that. And this is already going to be the second dragon going down from PGO. We talked, you know, on and on last game about how the dragons were a huge part of the win condition in game 1 for Team Death Realm. They didn't have it last game and they lost. They don't have it this game either. And they have fallen behind about, you know, 4K gold already at 12 minutes.
No cast needed for that. I think we all saw what happened. Hearthstone overstayed his welcome and got punished for it adequately.
Top diff in the chat. Top diff in the chat. Please spam. Hearthstone just being too greedy there. He didn't even get the turret. Like, it's one thing if you get the turret and then die, but to not get it, you know, I mean, it's not the end of the world, certainly, but
yeah,
not ideal, you know, certainly not ideal. Would have liked to see Hearthstone back up there and just have a little bit more respect. But, you know, so there are some signs of brightness, and looks like this Rift Herald might be dropped here down in the bot lane, possibly.
Absolutely will be, as you need your bot lane. You need this Jinx to get ahead. But it looks like Charizard will not allow that to happen as they gets the fear. That was really well played. This guy knows Warwick.
Yeah, no, like I said, his most games by far are on Warwick. I think he had something like 42 or 44 ranked games or something this season on Warwick, which is like, you know, quite a few given that the season is
it's
still
only a
pretty
month
young. Yeah. And so, you know, impressive to see him do that, especially since he's not a one-trick player, but glad to see that being pulled off. And you know, the Rift Herald, it does dive forward, is able to pick up some turret plating gold, but not able to ultimately make that one fall down. And now Warwick coming mid, just continuing to push Matt out of lane.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about Matt earlier before, you know, we had all these skirmishes. Like, unfortunately, right now, this game definitely looks in favor of PGO. And yes, they have an Orianna, yes, they have a Jinx, but these two champions are very, you know, you want to say they're late game carries, and right now the way the things are shaping up to be, I don't think they'll have enough time to get there to be those, you know, threats that they can be. So PGO or TDR, I'm sorry, need to do something, but once again they're just getting out macroed and just very terrible positioning there from Bipolar.
Yeah, no, Bipolar just not really having a very good showing after, you know, I criticized him coming into the series, being skeptical. You know, he kind of proved us wrong in the first game with that excellent performance on Sejuani, but after it's been banned in these next two games, it just, you know, he's looking like a little bit of a one trick in terms of his ability to... Yeah, I mean, you know, right, in terms of his ability to affect the team, it's not like he hasn't done some things well, especially in game 2. He did have his moments, but just not looking nearly as good on anything other than that Sejuani. And it's kind of the same for Mr. Potato as well, who had hard carry support performance in game 1 on the Lux, forced onto the Rakan and now the Braum, and we're just not really, doesn't seem like it's even the same player.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how things are working out right now for TDR, where now the jungler is the one that's I don't want to say feeding, but the jungler is the one that's not really having a great time, and Nemesis is actually even. Like, yeah, granted his CS numbers are still pretty down bad compared to his counterpart, but he's been doing a pretty good job just keeping a level head and level play in this game. So, but unfortunately, Malphite is not gonna. He's not your win condition. He's not necessarily gonna lead you to victory. So they're doing all they can to try and get this gold onto this Jinx here, with hopefully Orianna to supplement that. But Surprise is gonna get the flashlight onto the Orianna here with the ignite, and they're just gonna claim her life. I think that was just a bit disrespectful from Matt. Like, you can't. There's 3 members there. You cannot do that. And it looks like Nemesis is next. Unfortunately, wasting his. Maybe not. Matt lives.
Yeah, Nemesis able to keep himself alive.
Here comes the rocket. Nemesis, what are you doing? He doesn't even have ultimate.
Rocket not gonna hit. Yeah, Nemesis. I think he's just trying to maybe stop the recalls there, but now his team has recalled as well. And at the end of the day, when all said is done, there you got to be pretty happy if your team Death Realm. Matt did die under the turret, but on the other side of the map, they were able to claim that tier 2 in the bot lane, which those tier 2 turrets are worth a pretty huge amount of gold at this point. So that is a big boost for the rest of this team, and the gold lead looking a little, it is getting a little bit closer now. It's about 3k. It was closer to 4 before, but with the dragon spawning, we'll inevitably see another fight.
Absolutely. And it's a console. I just realized that. Let's go. Yeah, Charizard Flash is in. He has the fear activated. Will secure the proc onto Bipolars. Ezreal uses the True Shot Barrage, and he will just take out the TDR jungler here as Jinx is trying to do her best, but Warwick uses the ultimate to lock down the Jinx. She does survive, though, as Hubstone, it looks like he's overstepped, but Whole Green Man, I haven't really said much about him all this game. He silently picked himself a 307 KDA, and just able to Jinx gets the rocket there onto Hubstone, so yeah, we'll be able to get something back.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great. I'm glad that you mentioned the Vygar's scaling as well as his KDA as well, because we talked about the scaling sort of wombo combo ability from this team Death Realm squad, but also Vygar. We all know from our own solo queue games, if you let that champion sit in his lane and just stack his queues, he just becomes an absolute menace as the game goes on. But now the Rift Herald looks like it is looking to be taken by Predictive Gaming Odin, but TDR,
you know what? I really like this fight in favor of PGO as J4 uses the Cataclysm. I'm waiting to see this Nemesis ultimate come out here, or the ball delivery system. Looks like Shockwave misses, unfortunately. Matt using the ball there just to try and get himself some space between the rest of the TDR PGO members, as Nemesis will be taken out. Mr. Potato Rusher was not there. Oh my god, no wonder they didn't have their main source of damage. And now it looks like TDR have just thrown that fight in favor of PGO. And this is a Warwick chasing down the Jinx. I don't think Rusher, you're not getting out of here. As Mr. Charizard uses the Infinite Duress there. Never knew that was the name of the Warwick ultimate, to secure the kill onto the Jinx.
I mean, it definitely does seem infinite at times, when you're ulted by that Warwick. It seems like it's just never going to end. But nice chase down there for sure. And you already touched on it earlier in the broadcast, Redacted, but, Malphite, Nemesis going even on this Malphite, that's great and all, but at the end of the day, you need damage in order to kill the enemy team members, and Malphite just isn't able to bring that on his own. So even though Malphite is in the middle of 3 members, tanking them up for a fairly impressive amount of time, it just doesn't end up making a difference if Rusher isn't in position to get off his DPS from the back line alongside Matt on the Orianna as well.
Absolutely. And I noticed he Rusher, that is, he went the Gale Force build, which that was kind of the thing we were seeing on Jinx previously, but I've been seeing a lot more Kraken Slayer, and I'm just curious as to why he potentially picked that, chose that item there. I mean, yeah, you have the Thresh. Oh, as Malphite uses the ultimate there,
Yep,
and will not be able to get
that was the
that.
shockwave too.
Oh wow! So 2 ultimates used in for nothing really. Like, so now we have the surprise coming out with the Flay there. Vigar using the baby cage to keep Matt locked in, and they're just going to obliterate the Orianna there. Malphite's next on the menu. Jinx is getting some damage though. We should get the reset. She does, but Oddmitch takes her out immediately as Mr. Potato is the last member standing, and Trundle wasn't even there as he is split pushing the bot lane the entire time. And this game is definitely in PGO's grasp, and it probably an inhib. I don't think it's game just yet, but I could see 2 inhibitors going down here.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to end it, but absolutely dominating in this game. 4v5, able to take the fight. Only 1 casualty in Charizard going down, being that frontline team member. And that was a perfect illustration of how we set up this game right after the draft redacted. If that Malphite ultimate and the Orianna Shockwave are down, it is go time for PGO, and it's time to hit that button to just jump in and engage as fast as you possibly can. Surprise, stepped up to the plate, flash Flay forward the moment that they knew those ultimates were down, and they just wiped the fight, and right now it's looking all PGO.
Absolutely. So my question for you, Elsa, is you already know it's coming. As TDR, what do we do? You are down 10k gold, or about 9k, 10k gold. We'll just say 10k. What do we do to get back into this game?
Yeah, I mean, outside of having an Oddmitch level Jinx rocket onto the Baron like game 1, I'm not really sure, although obviously even that wasn't enough for PGO in game 1.
And Mr. Pate, what are you doing? You can't do that. You need your buddy.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Baron is going to be the next kind of center of events here. It is, 37 seconds on the Soul as well. So, PGO could potentially go down there with the Rift Herald being dropped top. With whichever objective PGO does decide to go on, I would like to see, if Bipolar is going to try to go for it, it's just going to be a 1-person steal, I would think. But we don't know. That's not how we've seen these teams play the objective so far in this series.
Yeah.
And it looks like, honestly, they're probably just going to allow PGO to take this dragon for free. Being on the
absolutely.
red side, it's just too hard to contest, even though it's the Soul.
Oh, no, you absolutely let them take that Drake for free. I mean, as much as we also like the Cloud Soul, I will say a little bit of disrespect. It's just a Cloud Soul, so yes, they have some movement speed and more, cooldown on their ultimate, but in terms of damage, it doesn't really hurt you or, make things much harder like an Ocean Soul or Infernal Soul would, with the damage from the Infernal Soul and the heal regeneration from the Ocean Soul. So of all the souls that you would be willing to give over it, that would be the one, as Bipolar messes up his flag and drag and will be claimed by Whole Grain Man, and that's gonna be Baron for PGO here.
Yeah, that looked a little bit weird. I couldn't tell if he just failed to get over the wall. It looked like maybe Whole Grain Man just had like a perfectly timed cage there from Vigar, but kind of hard to see. Awesome job tanking the rocket there.
And this is how insane this Warwick is. Ezreal and Vigar were warding off the TDR members, while Trundle, Warwick, and Thresh did the Baron.
Yeah, and while we've talked a lot this series overall about Huffzone and the way he's been able to dominate this 1v1 top lane matchup, but kind of looking at this game, like Huffzone as he goes on Nemesis to get the solo kill.
Yeah, and he flashes forward to ensure that the Nemesis doesn't ultimate out, but now it looks like he's going to be punished for that as TDR get something back for themselves, as they should. So, a little something.
Yeah, so it will be a 1-for-1. Ultimately, though, it does take Baron off of Huffzone.
Yes, Mr. Potato here uses the Glacial Fissure to slow down the Ezreal there, but he will be able to just arcane himself out as Whole Grain Man, using the baby cage there to get himself and his team some room to get the stun down, but Jinx flashing out as both members of PGO are flashing for this Jinx. I think this is game here, and it looks like PGO are gonna claim game 3 and claim the series 1-0 for PGO.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just playing with their food a little bit here, trying to get an additional kill onto this Malphite, but it's not going to happen. Instead, they're going to turn onto the Nexus, and it was not pretty. It did not go according to plan, but PGO, they do pick up the victory here in game one, redacted. Or game
And what a
three. I'm sorry,
game three.
week one.
Correct. Week one, game three. And what a game it was, you know, like it was quite unfortunate how things happened for TDR there. As you know, we did mention it before, like Nemesis wasn't necessarily he didn't feed Huff Zone, you know. I don't want to use that term, but like he played weak side really well this time. But unfortunately, Bipolar was just caught out a few times and couldn't capitalize on you know, couldn't affect the map as well as he had the potential to.
Yeah, and I think that I was really impressed by multiple members of PGO. You know, what I was trying to kind of get at there at the end is, you know, a lot of focus is often on Huff Zone. He's the one who does a lot of the talking, and you know, he's kind of a big leader for this team alongside Odd Mitch, who is their captain. But you know, Whole Grain Man just put on an absolute clinic of the mid lane, especially in this current meta, in this series, playing 2 games on Corki, just absolutely blowing everyone else out of the water in terms of damage. Doing an awesome job on Vigar in this 3rd game as well. So super happy to see him have that success. And you know what? Actually, for the first time here on CCS, the CCS broadcast, we are going to have a post-game interview with
Oh
the
wow.
winner. So going to be a little bit of I'll leave it a surprise, I guess, who we're going to have on the broadcast here in a minute. But I think we're going to take a little bit of a break just to make sure that we have it ready. But then we're going to jump into a post-game interview.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm very excited for that. And I just wanted to say right before we cut to break that, you know, the mid laners definitely showed their stuff this time around. Whole Grain Man, he was the silent carry. You know, Charizard was definitely more of the flashier champion that we all paid attention to because Warwick is such an unconventional and I would say unusual champ that you don't really see too much in these types of games. So it was very fun to see, and I hope we see more of him. I doubt it though. I'm sure other teams are now aware and will probably try and keep this Warwick out of the hands of the PGO
Charizard.
jungler
Yeah.
there. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Charizard.
No worries. Yeah. No,
Still
absolutely.
learning the names.
I mean, and these are the kind of picks that make it difficult for other teams to draft against you as the season goes on, right? Because, you know, yes, Charizard definitely had his best game of the series on the Warwick, but in game two, he definitely got it done on the Jarvan as well. So a player who can be dangerous on not only meta picks, but also pocket picks is one that's really difficult to play against and even harder to draft against. So going to be a huge boon for PGO going into the rest of this CCS split.
Absolutely. But we're going to take a short break here as we prepare for this post game interview with who? I don't know. Stay tuned to find out.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CCS. Week one, we just saw PGO taking a 2-1 victory over Team Deathrealm, and we are now joined by my personal player of the match, Whole Grain Man, here for an interview. Thanks for joining us, Whole Grain Man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You also they call you Barley too, right?
Yeah.
All right, Barley. All right.
Can you make
Thanks
the
for joining us,
connection to my
Barley.
username then?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna ask you, how did you get that? How did you come up with that summoner name?
You know, I guess it's on a little bit of need to know basis of why they call me Barley, but the connection is there. A little fun fact. I have some alt accounts that, Simple Grain Man is the second one, so little lore.
Oh boy,
nice.
What-
All
we
right,
got our own
enemy
Dark
team's
Souls
taken
here.
out. All right, well, whole Grain Man, Team Deathrealm, they're new to the league, so not necessarily a team that I guess I'm not sure if it's a team that you've played against before or played against any of their players in the past. But what did you expect to see from Team Deathrealm coming into this series? And did they surprise you with anything from their drafting or their in-game play?
Yeah, I guess I personally don't think I've played any of these guys prior. I think we came into the match thinking that, on paper their mid laner is probably looks like their best player. Obviously, I don't think we watched any of the lock-in tournaments with these guys because we learned that apparently their support's Lux one trick or something in that tournament. So definitely seem pretty proficient on that champion. So I mean, what after game one, we kind of realized that quickly their AD carry is probably the best player on their team. We just shift our focus around dealing with that side of the map, and success speaks for itself, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the other mid laner was having a bad day or something. He didn't really perform to what I was hoping, at least. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, coming into the matchup, Matt as their highest ranked player, wanted to see a little bit more for him. I'm wondering, in game two, he took the victor against you. You got the Corki again, which obviously seemed to be like what you were favoring in this particular series. Can you talk a little bit about that matchup? Just because I was really excited to see the victor. I think it's a really strong champion right now. I'm wondering what your insight into the matchup is. Like if it was just, again, Matt having a bad day, or is it Victor as a champion?
yeah, personally in the Victor Corki matchup, I've played it a bunch. It's kind of standard this season for sure. I'm always on the Corki side of things. I think he plays a little bit better. He's a little bit better in team fights, just in terms of a little bit longer range and can turn things around kind of a little bit better. Um, you know, if you have two evenly matched players, it probably should be the Victor winning the lane, especially if he's taking area like he did in the previous game. And I think TDR Mad is like a 70% win rate Victor, one trick almost. Well, not one trick, but is most played for sure. So we were just going to do the handshake matchup. I feel like a lot of people I've played in this league that play Victor so far, especially in scrims, they never really press the advantage that Victor really should have. They never really try to poke me or anything. They don't, you know, I guess respect the Gatling gun from Corki, but at the end of the day, if they don't press their advantage, I just get rolling more, and I think he scales a little bit better. And
Yeah.
ended up not being able to play, pushed up a little bit too far. I got a couple free kills on him,
Right.
and that was
Yeah,
that.
I wanted to ask. I know you're talking about game two here, but I wanted to ask about game one actually. A couple of things. So when they drafted that Gwen into the mid lane, one, what was your thought on that? And two, how did you all feel when you had lost that first game? Did you expect to win? Did you expect it to be a stomp, or did you and how did you all recuperate as a team to come back?
I mean, I think if anyone's consistently watching us, we always usually drop game one.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess we just came off a little bit flat. Didn't play to the intensity that we normally do. I personally don't think the the Gwen matchup is bad at all. I actually think it's pretty good, especially against Corky. You can negate, a large portion of his damage, and a lot of his chunk when she gets her field up. He piloted it pretty well. I was surprised he didn't pull it out again. I thought he played pretty well on it. Of course, at the end of the day, he's just like casting his other members and didn't really do any damage at the end of the day. But yeah, unfortunately, the other side of the map on our team got a little bit too far behind, and we weren't able to move on. I think we might have roamed a little bit too much. We might have not communicated what each of our team members needed, but after adjusting, of course, it turned things around.
Yeah, obviously you were able to heavily turn it around in the second and third game. So I just a couple more questions for you. This is the first full series. We saw you in the lock-in tournament, but this is the first full series that we've seen PGO this split so far in the CCS. And you do have your roster is mostly the same, but you just did have a little bit of a slop there, bringing in Surprise into the support role, and then moving Odd Mitch over to the AD carry. And I'm just wondering, if you can speak to what Surprise has been able to bring to this team, and if you all feel like you're playing differently, or how the style of PGO has changed based on that roster move.
Yeah, I think Surprise is a great player. I think he does a lot that we aren't as used to prior. I think he has a very high roam style and really likes to look for plays, communicate. What can we do? What can we not do? So I think he's definitely been a benefit to our team overall. Yeah, just excited to work more with him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you talked about his roaming style. We definitely saw that. We saw kind of how in that game one, he was allowing you to clear the wave and kind of bailing you out when and forcing Matt out of lane over and over again. So glad that you mentioned that, because that was definitely something we saw. I know going into game 3, Redacted was really calling for that Thresh to be a roaming presence, which it definitely was, which I'm sure makes a big difference as a mid lane player for sure.
Yeah, the greatest thing in the world is when you take the lantern max range, either on Corky or on some champion like Vigar, and just one shot a carry that's just hand wrapped to you. So I'm definitely not complaining in that case.
So speaking
Yeah.
of Vigar,
Oh.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of that, the Vigar game, if you ever go back and watch our stream of that VOD, like we didn't really give you as much praise or we didn't really put as much attention on you, but you were the silent assassin, of your team for that game. Granted, the jungler Charizard definitely had a lot more attention, and he was the flashier pick there because it's Warwick. Like, we don't see him that often, and he was going crazy with the fear procs and everything. But you had a pretty well game. I don't think you died, if I remember correctly. Let me look at the KD again. If Elsie, if you have any other
No,
questions,
I don't think so. But I wanted to say too, like
yeah, 6-0-14.
Yeah, you chose the Predator, which Redacted pointed out. Can you talk
That
a little
too.
bit about Predator, Vigar, and why that's a good choice on the champion?
Yeah, I think especially in competitive, going a combat summoner on or combat runes on Vigar probably isn't gonna win you more games. Especially against an Orianna, she's not really gonna put herself into any situation where you're just gonna like throw abilities at each other until one of you dies. You're gonna get killed either way by either getting caught out or having your team play around you, especially later in the game. Predator came in clutch, bringing me close enough to throw a cage over a wall or a cage just in the team space. Yeah, I think Predator's pretty good on him. If I had to be honest, I don't think I've played Vigar for maybe a year, so this is the first game since then.
Wow.
But usually I can play any champion, so big pool at least.
Yeah, it didn't look like you're very unfamiliar with the champion, given how you piloted it, and your cages were really pristine. Always, ensuring that the member couldn't get out or was in the kill zone for your team to secure.
Well, and sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, usually when you think of PGO, you think of the man in the top lane, the trash talker. So, I think even whole last season, I don't think I was ever mentioned in any of the documents except maybe once or twice. So usually, the joke is it's always talking about our other members. But I'm just gonna say, if you look at the stats of our team, I had the highest KDA across the whole season,
Whole
and
Grain Man said he wants his
the most
respect.
present.
Watch out,
So
everybody. Watch out.
Put some respect on his name. Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
All right. Well, it was great to have you. I just have one more question. Obviously, PGO returning for your second split here in the CCS. Last year, you made it to the semifinals, ended up losing to Collective, who are, of course, the eventual league champions. Coming into this second split, what are the goals and sort of expectations that you have for your team?
I mean, obviously, I think the expectation is to win. I think anything less than that probably wouldn't be what we want. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, it makes sense. Semis last time. Obviously, the natural progression is to finals. So, Whole Grain Man, it was awesome to have you here. We really appreciate you joining us for this first ever CCS post game interview. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that you're the player of the series as well, and that's the reason why we interviewed you. Obviously, I'm making that unilateral decision. But thanks for joining us for sure, and we look forward to seeing what you have to do the rest of the split.
And now
thanks,
you got
guys.
something else to brag over Huff Zone.
Yeah.
I think he might have gotten more solo kills than me, but maybe he was close.
Yeah, well, yeah, he had more solo kills with you, but he also definitely had more deaths than you, and definitely sidestepped into a Jinx rocket there at towards the end of that last game. But
Yeah, he likes to make things interesting.
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, once again, thank you, Whole Grain Man, for being here. I thank you, everyone, as well, who is watching, participating in the Twitch chat. Do remember that we do have that subscribe button on Twitch. Don't be afraid to hit that one. Support your favorite league in the CCS, if it is your favorite league, I guess. If not, I would still encourage you to sub either way. But that's been the broadcast for us today. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Redacted for joining us. First CCS broadcast. He absolutely killed it, and we're excited to see you back again soon.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be a part of it. And yeah, I'm excited for this season. Like, this was a hell of a series. So if that's what I got from my first series on this broadcast, I'm excited for whatever else I'm gonna see. So
yeah, and
I'm here
we'll
for
have
it.
so much more in store. Remember, this year we have a Wednesday conference as well as a Thursday conference. So we'll be back next Wednesday, absent Riot having random spectator bugs. But again, thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next time for the CCS.
Bye-bye.